Chapter 99. This divine intent was usually comprehended from the heavenly tribulation, and had a strong murderous nature. Those who comprehended the extreme realm were usually invincible among their peers. Because the divine intent imitated the heavenly tribulation, its power was naturally terrifying. Heavenly tribulation. Even the gods and Buddhas would be afraid of it. However, Wang Yao had used the red lightning twice, and failed to kill Ning Fan both times. This was beyond his expectation. The first time, Ning Fan relied on the death substitution order to block the red lightning. The death substitution order was extremely precious. It wasn't surprising that it could save his life once. However, he was still able to withstand the red lightning of the extreme realm the second time. He actually relied on his sword sense and sword sense. Wang Yao had never thought that Ning Fan could transform his sea of consciousness and condense the rare sword sense, even in the ancient times, when he was only at the harmonious spirit realm. However, Wang Yao did not think that even the sword consciousness's sword cognition could match his limitless red thunder. The extreme realm was different from the other void spirit intents. It couldn't pass through magical treasures to attack the opponent's sea of consciousness. Its power was extremely terrifying, and could kill countless experts at the same time. In the 7th region of Demon Sinister Forest, Bone Sovereign had used the red lightning to kill several void fragmentation old monsters, and defeated the little sable Mei Chen. But today, the red lightning of the extreme realm was broken by Ning Fan, even though it was released by Bone Sovereign's gold core true soul. At the last moment, Ning Fan was ruthless and merciless. He destroyed his own red lightning forcefully with a punch. For the first time, Wang Yao felt a trace of fear towards Ning Fan. Because his strongest magical technique was defeated by Ning Fan. My magical power has been exhausted, and my extreme realm has been destroyed. I won't be a match for this kid in a short period of time. I'll escape today. If my true soul is destroyed by this kid, my true body in Demon Sinister Forest will most likely suffer severe injuries, or even drop in cultivation realm. Wang Yao's face was still insolent, but he had already made up his mind to escape. However, he believed that it was impossible for him to escape without using some means. He flicked his finger, and a finger bone flew out. With a cold shout, that finger bone immediately turned into white bone ghost soldiers. 1 gave birth to 2, 2 gave birth to 4, 4 gave birth to 8. In an instant, there were nearly 1,000 ghost soldiers standing in the sky, wielding sabers and spears while letting out mournful ghost howls. Each and every one of them was a harmonious spirit expert. As soon as the ghost soldier was summoned, it immediately followed Wang Yao's will and attacked Ning Fan's. As for Wang Yao himself, he retreated. He pointed his finger at the crack in the void, and the pitch-black crack immediately began to dissipate. He took the opportunity to escape. Humph! You want to run? Do you think these harmonious spirit ghosts can stop me? Ning Fan's eyes flickered with a cold light. He and Bone Sovereign were irreconcilable enemies. If he let go of a trace of Bone Sovereign's true soul today, he would certainly face greater troubles in the future. He must never let him go. Break! He stepped on an icy rainbow and chased after Bone Sovereign. At the same time, his sword sense swept across the place. Everything under the vast sky was enveloped by his sword chi. Nearly 1,000 harmonious spirit ghosts were killed by Ning Fan's sword sense, and exploded one after another. They turned into ashes and vanished like smoke in the wind. As for Ning Fan, he coughed out another mouthful of blood. His injuries had worsened. One style, summoning 1,000 harmonious spirit ghosts. One style, annihilating 1,000 harmonious spirit experts. All the cultivators of Hu Clan felt their blood run cold. What they saw tonight was absolutely unforgettable. If Wang Yao and Ning Fan joined hands, they would be able to wipe out all the experts below the gold core realm in Yu country. While escaping, Wang Yao sensed that Ning Fan was chasing after him. His face was filled with shock. He summoned 1,000 harmonious spirit ghosts. Although he didn't think that they could kill Ning Fan, they could at least stop him for a while. However, to his surprise, Ning Fan was able to kill 1,000 harmonious spirit realm cultivators in just a few moves with his powerful sword sense. The power of Ning Fan's sword sense wasn't any weaker than the extreme realm of his body. Impossible. Even the sword sense of the ancient cultivators shouldn't have such power. What kind of sword chi did this kid fuse with his sword sense? How could it be so domineering? Wang Yao's voice was very low, but Ning Fan seemed to have heard him and sneered. It's the immortal execution sword chi. What? Impossible. The immortal execution sword chi was used by the ancient heavenly court to kill immortals and Buddhas. How can you control it? Ning Fan's words made Wang Yao's mind confused for the first time. He didn't answer Wang Yao's question out of kindness. He wanted to use the name of immortal execution to scare Wang Yao. Then, he would use his last trump card. Ning Fan patted his storage pouch and took out the Dan fragmentation cauldron. Wang Yao, who was running away, naturally didn't put it in his heart when he saw that it was only an early high-grade magical treasure. But immediately, the Dan fragmentation cauldron flickered with a dim light. Wang Yao's face turned ugly as he was stopped by the dim light. Body-fixing divine ability. Damn it. Why did I have to encounter such a troublesome divine ability when I wanted to retreat? The Dan fragmentation cauldron had the body-fixing divine ability. It might not be able to smash Wang Yao to death, but it could still stop him for a moment. Wang Yao thought that it wouldn't be difficult to break the body-fixing divine ability. But just as he broke free from the body-fixing divine ability, Ning Fan's icy light flashed, and was only 10 zhang away from him. At this moment, Ning Fan's hidden killing intent was released for the first time. It went straight to Wang Yao's heart like a raging wave. What level of killing intent is this? Wang Yao's expression changed drastically, but something unexpected happened. He saw Ning Fan patting the top of his head. An illusory incarnation that looked exactly the same as him shot out like a black light. The incarnation's expression was as cold as ice. When it appeared, it was slightly unstable, as if it would explode at any time. But there was a trace of half-step nascent soul realm aura on this incarnation. It made Wang Yao shiver in fear. Half-step nascent soul realm incarnation. How is this possible? Ah! He let out a blood-curdling scream as Ning Fan's sense soul incarnation broke through Wang Yao's unparalleled physical defense with a claw. It crushed all the immortal veins in his body and destroyed his cultivation base. But after destroying Wang Yao's physical body, Ning Fan didn't relax at all. Instead, he opened his mouth and spat out a starlight sword shadow towards another hidden place. There was nothing in that place, but after being slashed by the separation slayer, a shrill scream was heard. A soul emerged with an invisible flame burning on top of it. This soul was a trace of Bone Sovereign's true soul that escaped from Wang Yao's body before he died, but it didn't escape Ning Fan's perception. After losing his physical body, a trace of his true soul was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered under the soul-burning divine ability of the separation slayer. For the first time in his life, Bone Sovereign's illusory and painful face begged for mercy. Let this trace of my true soul go. After I unify the young world, I will divide the world equally with you. However, Ning Fan only responded with a sneer when he begged for mercy. Do you think I will believe you? The separation slayer fiercely slashed down, and this trace of Bone Sovereign's true soul died with a sky-high resentment. After retrieving the sense soul incarnation and the separation slayer, Ning Fan immediately swallowed a pill to regulate his breathing. Without resting, he immediately returned to Hu Clan, Cold Moon Mountain. From the moment he chased after Bone Sovereign to the moment he killed the trace of Bone Sovereign's true soul, it was only a dozen breaths of time. At this moment, the spatial seal that Bone Sovereign planted in Hu Clan had yet to dissipate completely. As for Ning Fan, he had to deal with Hu Clan before the spatial crack disappeared. After all, he had used too many trump cards to kill the Bone Sovereign. If he were to ignore the Hu Clan, he would be doomed. If he left Hu Clan alone, it would certainly cause a lot of trouble. He could either kill or subdue them. As for how to deal with Hu Clan, he still needed to see what kind of person the old ancestor of Hu Clan was, and whether he was worth subduing. Ning Fan immediately turned around and returned to Cold Moon Mountain. Not long after he left, a green-robed middle-aged man with an extraordinary demeanor emerged. His eyes were full of vicissitudes of life and full of emotion. The master of Sinister Sparrow sect, Sinister Sparrow. Initially, I wanted to eliminate this Wang Yao personally, but it seems like I'm no match for him. At least I couldn't withstand that red lightning. I didn't expect Ning Fan to have hidden his strength so deeply. I just don't know the origin of the void fragmentation expert that he killed. It seemed to be a ghost, most likely an expert of Demon Sinister Forest. AI, what did this kid do in Demon Sinister Forest to attract the pursuit of a void fragmentation expert? Judging from his words, it seemed like Sinister Sparrow had been tracking Wang Yao for a long time, and was also preparing to eliminate him tonight. In Demon Sinister Forest, Ning Fan and Wang Yao's results were the strangest. As the master, it was impossible for Sinister Sparrow not to investigate it. As for Ning Fan, it wasn't strange at all. After all, Ning Fan's master was the old devil, a true immortal expert. There were only a few people in Rain Immortal World who knew about him. As a good friend of the old devil, Sinister Sparrow naturally knew about him. Sinister Sparrow didn't suspect Ning Fan, but he suspected Wang Yao. The rise of Wang Yao was too strange. He had visited the Wang family once, and found that Wang Yao had always been an ordinary person in the family. He had been following Wang Yao for days and nights, and witnessed how Wang Yao annihilated the cultivators of Yu country. He had concluded that Wang Yao had ulterior motives in Sinister Sparrow sect. Sinister Sparrow was prepared to kill Wang Yao tonight, but it seemed like it would be difficult for him to kill Wang Yao alone. If they fought, there was a 50% chance that he would be killed by Wang Yao's red lightning. Fortunately, Ning Fan had intervened. Otherwise, Sinister Sparrow wouldn't dare to think about it anymore. Initially, I was thinking of helping him to settle the conflict between him and Revered Bai. But now it seems like there's no need to help him. That old bastard by fading is simply asking for humiliation. Sinister Sparrow smiled faintly. He felt gratified when he thought that Ning Fan was his son-in-law, and a disciple of his sect. Old man Han, your eyesight has finally improved for once. This disciple of yours might be able to avenge you. In the 7th region of Demon Sinister Forest, Bone Emperor was in seclusion, recovering a trace of his true soul that had been separated from his body. The damage to the soul was the hardest to heal. Separating a trace of his true soul and sneaking out of Demon Sinister Forest was a huge loss to Bone Sovereign. His cultivation base was at the 5th level of void fragmentation, but because of the separation of his true soul, his cultivation base had almost dropped. However, the thought of separating his true soul would not only allow him to kill that human brat, he might even be able to rampage in the Yang world and cultivate the body of his true soul to the void fragmentation realm. After that, he returned to Demon Sinister Forest. It would be a piece of cake for him to break through to the 6th level of void fragmentation after merging with his true soul. Killing Ning Fan was his main goal, but it wasn't his biggest goal. Bone Sovereign had great ambition. He had always wanted to conquer the Yang world. Ning Fan's appearance was just an opportunity for him. Bone Sovereign was in seclusion. Suddenly, his eyes widened in anger, and a mouthful of blood flowed out from his mouth. His divine soul was greatly damaged, and his cultivation base dropped rapidly. 4th level of void fragmentation. 3rd level of void fragmentation. He was just a hair's breadth away from falling to the 2nd level of void fragmentation. Damn it! What happened to my true soul? He closed his eyes in anger. The memories of his true soul gradually replayed in his mind. This ability wasn't possessed by his clone. Every scene that fell into Bone Sovereign's eyes turned into sharp killing intent. The one who killed his true soul was the human brat that he had never put in his eyes. Ning Fan, Ning Fan, Ning Fan. One day, when I leave the Demon Sinister Forest, I will definitely tear you into pieces. He roared with immense magical power. His voice spread to the 6th, 5th and 4th region. In fact, he had even heard about it in the 3rd region. Mei Chun, who was trying her best to recover her strength, was lazily lying in the Purple Clan. A figure appeared in her mind from time to time. That figure had teased her countless times, but now, he had already left. Bah! Why am I thinking about him? That heartless bastard has already treated me like this. Why didn't he express his gratitude? She cursed Ning Fan 1,000 times in her mind, but at this moment, she heard Bone Sovereign's roar. Her face lit up. She could sense a trace of instability in Bone Sovereign's voice. Bone Sovereign was severely injured. His cultivation base had dropped. If she were to consume some spiritual herbs to recover her cultivation base and return to the 7th region, she might be able to defeat Bone Sovereign and become the overlord of the 7th region again. Humph! Bone Sovereign, you finally got your retribution. However, it's really hard to imagine who could injure you. Mei Chen laughed heartily, but after hearing Bone Sovereign insulting Ning Fan again and again, she vaguely understood something. Impossible. Could it be that Ning Fan injured Bone Sovereign? How did he do it? And what's his purpose? He seemed to be dealing with Bone Sovereign. Mei Chen's heart was filled with mixed feelings. Then, she had a thought that she thought was absurd. Could it be that Ning Fan dealt with Bone Sovereign because of me? Bah! Why would he take such a huge risk for me? But what if? Chapter 100. His face was filled with killing intent. Tonight, he had revealed too many of his trump cards when he killed Wang Yao. In order to avoid trouble in the future, eliminating these witnesses was undoubtedly the most convenient thing to do. He slightly released his spirit sense with a trace of murderous intent, engulfing the 200-li radius of the Cold Moon Mountain. Every cultivator of Hu Clan was affected by Ning Fan's spirit sense. It was as if Ning Fan only needed a thought to turn the ethereal spirit sense into a sword sense that could take away their lives. Under the pressure of this spirit sense, cultivators below Harmonious Spirit Realm couldn't even stand straight. The remaining Harmonious Spirit cultivators of Hu Clan, including the commander of the Hu Guards, Hu Ming, were looking at the young man on the mountain peak with reverence. As for old ancestor Hu Fengzi, he felt Ning Fan's pressure the most. He had temporarily broken through to the Gold Core realm after consuming the decaying corpse pill, but he still felt that his life and death were beyond his control under Ning Fan's spirit sense. This Ning Fan could easily annihilate Hu Clan, just like the Void Fragmentation Old Monster. Since Ning Fan had returned, and the Void Fragmentation Old Monster was nowhere to be found, it undoubtedly meant that Ning Fan had killed the old monster. Hiss! Slashing the Void Fragmentation. With this thought, Hu Fengzi's fear towards Ning Fan rose to an unprecedented level. The scenes of Ning Fan's strange means appeared in his mind, making his hair stand on end. He was horrified to realize that Ning Fan wanted to silence them and annihilate Hu Clan. Hu Fengzi could understand that any one of Ning Fan's means would be coveted by countless old monsters. If it was Hu Fengzi who exposed his trump card and had the ability to silence them, he naturally wouldn't be merciful. His face was showing signs of life, but his mind was thinking of a way to solve the current crisis. Looking at the cold spring far away, and the despair of the cultivators of Hu Clan, Hu Fengzi seemed to have made a decision. He dragged his weak body toward the Cold Moon Mountain in a flash of light. He had a calm expression, as if he was ready to die. When he was 100 zhang away from the mountain peak, he stopped and cupped his fists at Ning Fan. This old man is the old ancestor of Hu Clan, Hu Fengzi. Nice to meet you, Elder Ning. Ning Fan closed his eyes without saying a word. His spirit sense was still locked on Hu Fengzi. If Hu Fengzi made any strange movements, he would die for sure. Elder Ning, can you spare the Hu Clan? Hu Fengzi smiled bitterly. I'm not interested in the life and death of the Hu family, but I have to solve the hidden danger. If the cultivators of my Hu Clan pledge allegiance to Elder, and allow Elder to plant a restrictive spell on them, is it possible for them to live? My Hu Clan still has the spirit spring vein. I'm willing to offer it to you with both hands. There are also countless magical treasures and pills that Elder can take for himself. Hu Fengzi gritted his teeth. Given his proud character, he would never allow his Hu Clan to become the subordinate of others, but he was even more unwilling to see his descendants die a violent death. Hu Fengzi could see that if Ning Fan really wanted to destroy the Hu Clan, he would have killed all the cultivators on the scene the moment he appeared. The reason why he did not make a move was because he had the intention of subduing the Hu Clan. Therefore, Hu Fengzi took the initiative to submit to Ning Fan. Ning Fan, on the other hand, looked deeply at Hu Fengzi with admiration in his eyes. You have a good mind, and your personality can be considered steady. You are qualified to be the ancestor of a clan. Don't worry. I just don't want the cultivators of Hu Clan to talk too much. Go and gather the cultivators of Hu Clan. I'll plant a restrictive spell on them. After that, today's matter will be over. Ning Fan smiled faintly and retracted his spirit sense. As for the cultivators in the Hu Clan's territory, they all let out sighs of relief. It wasn't a big deal to Ning Fan whether the Hu Clan was exterminated or not. As for the cultivators of Hu Clan, they had lost their guards, a few harmonious spirit experts, and their old ancestor. Ning Fan no longer put their strength in his eyes. As for the magical treasures and pills of Hu Clan, Ning Fan didn't care much about them. Only the spirit spring vein, the cold moon spring, could slightly move Ning Fan. His tone was indifferent, but it gave the cultivators of Hu Clan a chance to live. Hu Fengzi's face immediately lit up. Who would be willing to die if they could avoid death? At least they would have a chance to live after being planted with a restrictive spell. Without this person, all the cultivators of Hu Clan would have died in the stomach of the Bone Sovereign. Pass down my order. All the cultivators of Hu Clan are to gather at the foot of the Cold Moon Mountain. Let Senior Ning plant a restrictive spell on them. As the old ancestor of Hu Clan, no one dared to disobey his order. As for the cultivators of Hu Clan, after knowing that they were going to be planted with a restrictive spell by Ning Fan and lose their freedom, each of them revealed a worried expression. Ning Fan descended from the Cold Moon Mountain with a flash of an icy rainbow. Not long after, Hu Fengzi led a group of cultivators to the foot of the mountain. Senior, please plant a restrictive spell on us. Hu Fengzi cupped his fists at Ning Fan respectfully, but the death chi on his face was getting stronger. The medicinal power of the decaying corpse pill was fading away. Once the time is up, he would die. Ning Fan sighed slightly. He found this Hu Fengzi quite pleasing to the eyes. This man was indeed worthy of being the clan lord for many years. He was willing to die for his clan members. If he could stay in Hu Clan, he would be a great help. Unfortunately, the decaying corpse pill was a pill that would lead one to death. In order to gain strength, one had to pay the price of blood. This was the heavenly Tao. Even Ning Fan couldn't save Hu Fengzi. After withdrawing his emotions, Ning Fan planted a restrictive spell on the sea of consciousness of the cultivators of Hu Clan. Each and every one of them was planted with a restrictive spell. With a complicated sigh, they went to clean up the ruins of the clan and rebuild their homeland. The void had been completely sealed off. Ning Fan didn't want to stay any longer. Under Hu Fengzi's lead, he came to the land of Hu Clan. He shook the cauldron ring and kept the entire spirit spring into the red misty space. This method was unimaginable. Hu Fengzi immediately recognized that Ning Fan's cauldron ring was a legendary heavenly dwelling magical treasure. Spatial magical treasures could store things, but only heavenly dwelling magical treasures could store rivers and mountains. Ning Fan's method was shocking. If he could take care of Hu Clan a little, he wouldn't have any worries after his death. He hesitated for a moment before cupping his fists and begging Ning Fan. Elder Ning, this old man has a request. I can't remove the toxicity of the decaying corpse pill for you. This pill is used to exchange one's lifespan for cultivation. Obtaining it would mean losing it. Ning Fan's tone was a little helpless because his younger brother, Ning Gu, had also practiced the same vicious cultivation method as the life-sealing ruler. This kind of loss of vitality couldn't be replenished by pills. The heavenly Tao wouldn't tolerate it. Cultivators could push mountains with their fists and fill the sea with their fingers, but they couldn't go against the heavenly Tao. This was the helplessness of cultivators. No, this old man knows that I'm going to die. I don't want to live. This old man only has one request. After I die, can Elder Ning take care of Hu Clan? Hu Fengzi pleaded. He knew that Ning Fan planted the mental seal on Hu Clan just to seal their mouths. In fact, Ning Fan had no interest in Hu Clan. If Hu Clan was in trouble, it was hard to say whether he would help or not. However, he still hoped that Ning Fan would help because Hu Clan had lost their guards. If he died, the enemies of Hu Clan wouldn't turn a blind eye to them. Even Purple Light Sect, which had a good relationship with Hu Clan, might turn around and suppress Hu Clan. This was the cruelty of the world of cultivation. Ning Fan slightly frowned at Hu Fengzi's request. But before he could refuse, Hu Fengzi put away all his hesitation, revealed a determined look and pleaded solemnly. If Elder Ning promises to help Hu clan 3 times, this old man is willing to give up reincarnation and condense a cultivation pill with my lifetime's cultivation base as a gift to Elder Ning. Initially, this old man wanted to leave this pill for Hu Ming, but it seems like he is still too young to take on such a great responsibility. Cultivation pill. Ning Fan's eyes were filled with surprise. His gaze towards Hu Fengzi was filled with emotions. You have done too much for the clan. This old man doesn't regret it. Elder Ning, tell me, are you going to agree or not? Forget it. If I get the cultivation pill, I, Ning Fan, promise to help Hu clan 3 times in my lifetime. Many thanks. Hu Fengzi looked at the busy cultivators from afar and revealed a gratified smile. As for Ning Fan, he felt slightly disappointed and closed his eyes. The cultivation pill was similar to the Dao fruit. After consuming it, it could directly increase a cultivator's cultivation base without any worries. It wasn't like a pill that would make the cultivator's magical power weak after consuming it. The difference was that the Dao fruit was condensed from the magical power of the person who was killed, while the cultivation pill was condensed from the magical power of a living person at the cost of his or her soul. Everyone would die one day, and even if a cultivator died, he or she would still desire to enter reincarnation and cultivate again. However, Hu Fengzi was willing to sacrifice his own soul to concoct a cultivation pill, just to ask Ning Fan to help him 3 times. As a patriarch, he was qualified. Tonight, Ning Fan thought about a question for the first time. What was he cultivating, and what was the purpose of his cultivation? In the eyes of the cultivation world, Hu Fengzi's method was extremely stupid and worthless. However, Ning Fan felt that if he was Hu Fengzi, he would also choose the same path. The heart devil was getting stronger and stronger. With the cultivation pill that was comparable to the Dao fruit, Ning Fan could go into seclusion to eliminate the heart devil and break through to the gold core realm. The only thing he lacked was time. Elder Ning, follow me to the Cold Moon Mountain. This old man wants to die there. Hu Fengzi smiled bitterly. Sure, I will send you to the Dao Death. Ning Fan's tone was flat. In an instant, he vaguely felt that his current state of mind was secretly in line with the true meaning of sending the monarch death. Chapter 101. Have you heard about it? The culprit who killed dozens of cultivators has been executed. It seems that the old ancestor of Hu clan took the decaying corpse pill and perished together with the culprit. However, Hu clan suffered a great loss and became a third-rate force in Yu country. Their relationship with Purple Light sect has also been severed. In the dual cultivation palace of Sinister Sparrow sect, a few female disciples were talking about the sensational event in Yu country. It was just a rumor and a fact. Such a rumor was naturally arranged by Ning Fan. 10 days had passed since the Battle of Cold Yu country, but the popularity of this event hadn't decreased. Another thing that shook Sinister Sparrow sect was Wang Yao's disappearance. Wang Yao was a deacon disciple, but he left the sect without permission and didn't return for a long time. Many elders had already regarded him as a traitor. This matter gradually subsided after the old ancestor of Wang clan personally came to apologize. Another matter had replaced it and became the latest topic in Sinister Sparrow sect. Ning Fan went into seclusion. Everyone knew that Ning Fan went into seclusion to fight Revered Bai. The former was known as the #1 expert below the Gold Core realm in Yu country, while the latter was an old monster who had been famous for a long time. This battle had attracted a lot of attention even in Yu country. However, it was rare to find someone who believed that Ning Fan would win. Ning Fan had monstrous talent, but he was still too young. Plus, he cultivated dual cultivation, which made his combat strength slightly weaker than his peers. As for Revered by fading, it was said that his profound ice art had already reached the 4th minor realm of the 3rd level. He had even devoured a 3rd-grade cold chi by chance. Bai Fading's combat strength was unrivaled, even among intermediate Gold Core experts. He had even fought with the late Gold Core old monster of Great Void sect, Elder Song Feng, for a few days, but there was no clear winner. This showed how powerful he was. In the dual cultivation palace, the topic of the female disciples gradually shifted to Ning Fan. Bai Lu, who was meditating on the futon at the side, knitted her brows from time to time, as if she would feel irritated just by hearing Ning Fan's name. When he sensed that a woman had arrived at the dual cultivation palace, he immediately withdrew his frustration and calmed down. She got up and gently brushed the dust off her thin gauze gown. Then, she led the female disciples to the dual cultivation palace to welcome Ning Fan. Ever since Ning Fan went into seclusion, a blue-robed lady would come to visit him every day. She would always stand outside Ning Fan's stone chamber for a long time. Young Master Lan Mei. Even Bai Lu didn't dare to slight her. Greetings, young master. Bai Lu bowed gracefully with an unnatural smile. Is he still in seclusion today? Lan Mei's tone was cold, with a trace of dignity of a superior. Yes. Bai Lu seemed reluctant to talk about Ning Fan. Bai Lu, come with me. I have something to ask you. Lan Mei's eyes flickered. Her tone left no room for refusal. As for Bai Lu, she lowered her head slightly and followed Lan Mei into Ning Fan's courtyard. However, the moment they entered the room, Lan Mei could no longer pretend to be cold and arrogant. Instead, she burst out laughing. After her body was healed, Lan Mei was in a good mood, and she smiled more. Sister Bai, there's no one here. You don't have to be so restrained today. Teach me some more. Are you done yet? I don't want to teach you anymore. Bai Lu no longer pretended to be respectful, and said with dissatisfaction. Please teach me. You and Ning Fan have done it so many times. Lan Mei showed a rare trace of pleading. I have nothing to do with him. If you say that again, I won't teach you anymore. All right. I won't say anymore. Then sister, quickly teach me. Lan Mei's tone was as if she was talking to her teacher. It was because she liked to learn all kinds of techniques to please Ning Fan from Bai Lu. Now that she was a woman, and would be Ning Fan's wife in the future, there were some things that she had to learn properly. She didn't have a mother to teach her, so she came to seek help from the #1 demoness of Dual Cultivation Palace, Bai Lu. Bai Lu knew a lot of Yin Huan technique and bed technique, and this woman seemed to be an outsider just like Ning Fan. No matter what, Lan Mei was the young master. Bai Lu didn't dare to offend her, so she could only teach her everything she knew. No one knew that the Heaven's Pride of Sinister Sparrow Sect, Lan Mei, and the #1 demoness of Sinister Sparrow Sect, Bai Lu, were talking about erotic secret techniques in Ning Fan's room. Ning Fan had no idea what was happening in the outside world. This seclusion only lasted for half a year. It was a long time for mortals, but it was too short for cultivators. It was so short that it wasn't enough for them to do too many things. Sweeping away all the distracting thoughts, Ning Fan only had one thought in his mind in the quiet and dim stone chamber. Improve my strength. After the battle with Wang Yao, Ning Fan realized his own shortcomings. He had more offense, but insufficient defense. In terms of fighting experience, he was far superior to his peers, but compared to the real old monsters, his experience was not just a little bit inferior. Gradually, the flaws of his cultivation technique began to show. In the battle with Wang Yao, he was only relying on his trump cards to hold on, while Wang Yao casually cast magical techniques that were extremely powerful. Casting magical techniques didn't only require magical power, but also the corresponding cultivation technique. Although Ning Fan had cultivated the snow treading art to the 2nd level, he didn't comprehend it in detail. He only learned the ice rainbow escape art, and didn't cultivate any other ice element magical techniques. As for the black demon art, he didn't cultivate it at all. He had devoured the black demon flame by chance, but he hadn't used it for a long time because he didn't know any magical techniques, so he couldn't unleash the true power of the black demon flame. If Ning Fan didn't have any trump cards, he would only have 2 sword chi, fire transformation sword, and White Bones Mountain. Moreover, he had only comprehended the 2 sword chi, and it was still far from being able to unleash its true power. The silver light that shone through his body was stronger than any peak harmonious spirit body cultivator. But Ning Fan hadn't even cultivated a single body refining technique. The divine ability that law cultivators cultivated was called magical technique. Body cultivators cultivated body refining techniques. Strictly speaking, the giant avatar that Wang Yao displayed that day was a type of body refining technique. Among the divine abilities of the ancient fiend gods, there were many body refining techniques that were far more powerful than magical techniques. Whether it was magical technique or body refining technique, Ningfan hadn't learned any of them. In the memory of ancient chaos, dual cultivation of body and law, reaching the realm of unity of body and dharma, was the cultivation path of the ancient fiend gods. Bone Sovereign had achieved it, but Ningfan hadn't succeeded in cultivating either. As for the Separation Slayer, it had the soul-burning divine ability attached to it, but its grade was still pitifully low. No, it should be said that the Separation Slayer had advanced from low grade to high grade, in just half a year was already very shocking. Unfortunately, Ningfan's cultivation advanced even faster, to the point where a low-grade high-grade magical treasure was useless in battle. The Separation Slayer must be refined again. If the rib bone of Bone Sovereign was fused into it, it would certainly increase the power of the Separation Slayer, or even gain some other powerful divine abilities. Thus the purpose of this seclusion was very clear. First, he must cultivate the Black Demon art and Snow Treading art to the peak of the second level, and master several kinds of ice and fire magical techniques. Secondly, he must cultivate a defensive body refining technique to unleash the full power of the silver light through his body refining realm. Lastly, he must refine the Separation Slayer and fuse it into the rib bone of Bone Sovereign. Apart from that, there were two other magical techniques that Ningfan had to cultivate: false thought art and defensive thought art. There were three styles in the divine thought art. The first style was concealment, the second style was defense, and the third style was clone. The first style, false thought art, required the consumption of spirit refining grass. Currently, Ningfan had obtained a lot of spirit refining grass from Meng Chu. The second style, defensive thought art, required the consumption of the magical treasure spirit. Ningfan also had a few spirit magical treasures. There were too many things that needed to be done. Half a year was too short. However, Ningfan firmly believed that if he went into seclusion for half a year, he would be able to make up for all his weaknesses and become a true expert. Whether it was the cultivation method or the improvement of magical powers, in fact, they were all preparations for breaking through to the Golden Core stage. Even with the inheritance of ancient chaos, the success rate of Ningfan breaking through to the Gold Core realm was still not high. According to his estimation, he would need at least 10 years of seclusion to have a chance to break through the bottleneck of the Gold Core realm. But if he failed, 10 years of hard work would be wasted in a day. Cultivators with slightly inferior aptitude only had a 10% success rate in breaking through the bottleneck. Those genius cultivators had less than 20% success rate in forming their core. Every Gold Core cultivator had to break through the bottleneck several times before they succeeded. Those who succeeded the first time were all people with heaven-defying luck. Ningfan was estimating his success rate in his mind. His aptitude wasn't the best, but he wasn't stupid either. He had at least a 20% success rate. If I pluck Bing Ling and Yu Ling to benefit myself at the expense of others, my success rate could reach 30%. Ningfan's eyes were complicated. He looked at the cauldron ring on his left wrist. For the first time, he hesitated whether to pluck the two girls. But in the end, he didn't have the heart to do it. He couldn't do it to those who had helped him before. After a sigh, he patted the top of his head. The half-step nascent soul sense incarnation was separated from his body. This incarnation had a half-step nascent soul cultivation base, but it was extremely unstable. It couldn't exert much combat power, but it could still be used for sneak attacks and killing blows. Because of condensing this incarnation, half of Ningfan's divine soul had been lost. This result would lower the success rate of core formation. However, the improvement of spirit sense would increase the success rate. Because I severed my own soul, the success rate of forming my gold core will be 5% lower than ordinary people. But the strength of my spirit sense can also help me resist the heart devil. Therefore, the success rate of forming my gold core will increase instead of decreasing. After that, Ning Fan patted his storage pouch and took out a blood-red pill. It was the size of a fingernail, but it contained vast magical power. If one listened carefully, one could hear the sound of a heartbeat coming from the pill. Ning Fan's expression showed a hint of disappointment when he saw the pill. This was the cultivation pill that the old ancestor of Hu clan condensed at the cost of his soul. He was going to give this pill to Hu Ming, but Ning Fan's appearance changed the old ancestor's mind. This cultivation pill is condensed by the early gold core magical power of the old ancestor, after he consumed the decaying corpse pill. Its medicinal effect is slightly inferior to the Dao fruit of an early gold core cultivator, but it's not far from it. After consuming this cultivation pill, my success rate of core formation will reach 60%. Finally, he took out an ancient pill scroll that was given to him by Xueqing. A type of third revolution pill was recorded on the pill scroll, and it was called Golden Sunglow Pill. The effect of this pill could increase the success rate of core formation by 10%. He couldn't increase it, but who could guarantee that if he failed to reach core formation, he wouldn't lose that 10% chance of success? Moreover, even if the core formation failed, it could still accumulate magical power to lay the foundation for the next breakthrough. It could also shorten the time needed to break through the bottleneck of the gold core realm. With the addition of this pill, Ning Fan had a 70% success rate of core formation. If this success rate was spread out, every gold core old monster would be dumbfounded. After all, there had never been a cultivator who had such a high success rate. Compared to pursuing the success rate of core formation, those old monsters were more willing to exchange their limited resources for pills that could increase their cultivation base after core formation. They weren't short of time and weren't afraid of failure, but Ning Fan lacked time the most. Core formation was a waste of time. If he failed again, Ning Fan didn't dare to think about the consequences. He didn't dare to imagine the helplessness he would feel when he faced Moksha Emperor 100 years later. 70% success rate isn't low, but I want a higher success rate. If I dual cultivate body and law, the success rate will be increased by 5%. If I can cultivate the black demon art and snow treading art to the third realm, the success rate of core formation will increase by another 10%. 85% is the limit that I can reach. If I still fail to form my core, then everything will be the will of heaven. Ning Fan smiled helplessly. The will of the heaven? Who could go against the will of the heaven? The old monster was teased by the will of the heaven, turning from a true immortal to a harmonious spirit, and a cripple without any cultivation base. No matter how strong a cultivator was, he wouldn't have a good ending if he angered the will of the heaven. Going against the will of the heaven was too difficult. If it was possible, Ning Fan wouldn't choose the path of going against the will of the heaven. It was too difficult, painful, and lonely, but if he still failed with an 85% success rate, he would have to form the core even if he had to go against the will of the heaven. Start the seclusion. First, I need to comprehend 2 cultivation laws. The more people there are, the better. The third art of the divine art of thought could be used here. Body art of thought, clone art. Ning Fan's fingers formed an incantation gesture. Immediately, illusory clones emerged from his body. They looked exactly the same as the original body, except that they had no cultivation base. These clones belonged to the category of fake clones, completely different from incarnations. Using them in battle would be suicide, but if they were used to comprehend, in an instant, Ning Fan had created more than 100 clones. This was the limit of his half-step nascent soul spirit sense. He immediately gave the first order to the clones. All of you can live for 3 days. Within these 3 days, I want all of you to comprehend the black demon art and snow treading art together. Yes, more than 100 clones answered in unison. 100 people comprehending cultivation laws at the same time was 100 times faster than an ordinary person. Although this would put a huge burden on his spirit sense, Ning Fan was confident that he could endure the pain. It wouldn't be difficult to comprehend the 2 cultivation laws to the peak of the 2nd level in half a year. The first transformation was when Ning Fan obtained the immortal emperor's inheritance. He transformed from a mortal into a cultivator. The second transformation was when Ning Fan completely assimilated into the identity of a cultivator and became a true expert. While Ning Fan was in seclusion, Seven Apricot City was also quietly changing. In the city lord's room, Ji He and Si Wuxia were sleeping in their clothes. It seemed like they had a long conversation last night. The innocent Ji He and the amnesiac Si Wuxia seemed to be very compatible. The morning light shone through the window. Ji He lazily turned over and continued to sleep. As for Si Wuxia, her body suddenly trembled as if she was electrocuted. Immediately, her beautiful eyes opened as if she had just woken up. It wasn't that she had woken up, but the memory that was sleeping in her body had burst out. Ning Fan. I remember now. Si Wuxia revealed a resentful expression, but immediately, she felt a pain in her head and fainted. After a long time, Si Wuxia once again opened her eyes, but this time, her innocent expression was restored. Strange. I had a very strange dream just now. Sisi, what happened to you? Ji He rubbed her eyes and asked with a yawn. Nothing. I just had a dream. I dreamt that I became another me. So strange. Si Wuxia was puzzled. You are thinking too much. Oh right. I am about to break through to the harmonious spirit realm. Later, I will go to Commander Nangong to get some dawn, and then go into seclusion. Can you protect me? Ji He pleaded. Hearing that Ji He was about to break through to the harmonious spirit realm, Si Wuxia was so surprised that she couldn't close her mouth, making her look quite cute. You have never seriously cultivated for a day, yet you are about to break through to the harmonious spirit realm. Although she lost her memories, she vaguely remembered that breaking through to the harmonious spirit realm was extremely difficult. Could it be that the silly Jiha actually had such a talent for cultivation? No wonder Master doted on her so much. Chapter 102. With the body thought art. Ning Fan's comprehension speed was 100 times faster than ordinary people, but the fatigue he had to endure was also 100 times more. Generally speaking, in the cultivation world, each level is divided into 9 small realms. Ordinary people would need several years to increase their cultivation by one minor realm, but Ning Fan's 100 clones allowed his cultivation realm to rapidly increase. In just a month, he had cultivated the black demon art to the first layer, then broke through the first layer and reached the second layer. At this moment, the fire element of the black demon art was balanced with the ice element of the snow treading art, secretly conforming to the principle of yin and yang. However, Ning Fan didn't feel relaxed because he still needed to comprehend the 2 cultivation laws to the peak of the second level. In other words, he needed to break through to the 9th realm of the second level. In the second level, every increase in realm would increase the power of the magical technique by at least 10%. In total, the magical technique of a harmonious spirit cultivator, at the peak, would be more than twice as powerful as a cultivator of the same level. In order to cultivate the cultivation laws, Ning Fan put in a lot of effort. To comprehend the fire element cultivation laws, he took out the black demon flame and white bone flame for his clones to study. To comprehend the ice element cultivation laws, he took out the bone prison chi for his clones to study. Heavenly frost cold chi and earth vein demonic flame were hard to obtain for ordinary people, but Ning Fan already had 3 of them. Like this, the second month passed. Ning Fan's cultivation laws successfully broke through to the 6th realm of the second level and officially reached the peak of the second level. After 3 months of seclusion, Ning Fan's magical power didn't increase, but his aura became more imposing, making people breathless. He withdrew all of his clones and pointed a finger, shooting out a black fire dragon. This black demon flame was one of the 9 dragon flames of the black demon flame. When Ning Fan first cultivated it, it was enough to injure an early harmonious spirit Yuchi. But now, with his peak harmonious spirit magical power, and the peak of the second level, this fire dragon was enough to kill a peak harmonious spirit cultivator, even without any magical technique. Ning Fan's eyes flickered. Then he pointed his finger and cast the first fire element magical technique of the black demon art. Dragon Vortex. Inside the stone chamber, the black demonic fire suddenly spread out like a black ocean. It swept towards a huge rock that was 100 feet tall in the stone chamber. That rock was a sword-testing rock. It was usually placed in a stone chamber for cultivators to use their magical techniques to attack. There was no other use for this stone. It was extremely hard, but its weakness was that it lacked flexibility and ductility, so it could not be used to forge magic treasures. This stone was precious and hard to come by. Lan Mei had begged for this piece from her father. However, after the flames engulfed the boulder, it didn't seem to be damaged at all. It was evident how hard it was. In terms of defense, this stone seemed to be even stronger than peak harmonious spirit experts. However, Ning Fan changed his incantation gesture. Immediately, the black devil flames turned into a fiery whirlpool, revolving around the gigantic boulder violently. As it spun, the faint roar of a dragon came from the center of the vortex. Immediately, the power of the flames doubled. Dragon Vortex, first rotation. After the first revolution, even a false core cultivator would be incinerated. As for the giant rock, it emitted sizzling sounds. Although it wasn't damaged, its surface was melting at an undetectable speed. Second rotation. At this critical moment, Ning Fan reluctantly performed the incantation gesture, forcibly causing the fiery whirlpool to spin once more. After the second revolution, the whirlpool became even more violent, and the power of the heart flame doubled again. It could even severely injure an early gold core cultivator. Under the power of the flame, tiny rock chips began to peel off from the sword-testing rock. Although it wasn't much, it was enough to prove that the magical technique had successfully injured the giant rock. After withdrawing the dragon vortex, Ning Fan heaved a sigh of relief. His eyes were burning with passion. Dragon vortex. This technique had a total of 9 revolutions. Every time one of the revolutions was completed, the power of the magical technique would double. The second revolution could injure an early gold core cultivator. The third revolution could injure by fading. If he could successfully condense a fire dragon in the third revolution, he could even injure a late gold core cultivator. If I can cultivate this technique to the third revolution and condense a fire dragon, I won't need to use every move as my trump card when fighting gold core cultivators in the future. I only need to use ordinary magical techniques. And I don't need to hurt myself first before hurting others in every battle. Ning Fan smiled faintly, but immediately, he seemed to have thought of something. His expression turned cold. He raised his finger, channeled the cold magical power, and pointed at the giant rock. This cold magical power didn't have the support of the heavenly frost cold chi, so its power wasn't that great. However, when the cold chi enveloped the sword-testing rock, the scorching hot rock suddenly encountered extreme coldness and began to crumble immediately. The core of the rock didn't crumble, but an inch of the rock chips began to peel off crazily. When the fire reaches the extreme, use ice. Ning Fan's heart skipped a beat. This was a principle that every tool refinement master would understand. When refining magical treasures, the most taboo was the rapid exchange of heat and cold, as it would easily cause the incomplete magical treasure to break. Ning Fan realized that this principle could also be used in a battle. Imagine, if he encountered an enemy with a defense like a tortoise and a body as hard as a rock, he would first attack with the dragon vortex fire, and then use a tyrannical ice magical technique. No matter how strong the tortoise shell was, it would still be shattered. There were only 3 types of ice magical techniques recorded in the snow treading art. The first type was the ice light escape art, which Ning Fan was already used to. The second type was the ice armor body, which could increase the magical defense. This magical technique was rare, so Ning Fan would naturally learn it. The third type was the Tenli blizzard, which could turn a Tenli area into a snowy world. This technique was extremely mysterious because it could change the weather. Perhaps the reason why ancient chaos remembered the snow treading art was because of this technique. Once the Tenli area was turned into a snowy battlefield, his ice magical power would be inexhaustible within the time it takes for an incense stick to burn, and he could obtain as much as he wanted from the snowy world. This technique was heaven-defying, and it was difficult to practice it. But the most important thing was, none of the 3 styles of the snow treading art were ice magical techniques. They seemed to be auxiliary magical techniques. Without a high-grade ice magical technique, Ning Fan could only settle for a low-grade ice technique, the Ice Rain technique. The Ice Rain technique was a spirit-level magical technique. Its effect was to turn magical power into ice rain that was as sharp as thorns, suitable for dealing with groups of enemies. 100 drops of ice rain could be considered as minor achievement. 1,000 ice rain could be considered as major achievement. 9,000 ice rain could be considered as perfect, and beyond 9,000 ice rain could be considered as limitless. This technique was considered as an extremely common magical technique in the cultivation world. But on second thought, Ning Fan felt that it would be better to use an ordinary ice magical technique to freeze the enemy who was burned by the fire magical technique. After being burned by the tyrannical dragon vortex, what would be the enemy's first thought when they saw Ning Fan using an ordinary ice attack? It would be that Ning Fan's magical power was depleted, and he couldn't cast a stronger ice technique. It would be that this technique wasn't a concern. It would be carelessness and lack of preparation. To make the enemy careless was far more important than the level of the magical technique itself. There was an old saying in the cultivation world: those who are good at swimming will drown, and those who hold an umbrella will get wet. Sometimes, using a high-grade magical technique to attack and attract the enemy's attention was far inferior to using a low-grade magical technique to trick the enemy and injure them. Many experts who were cautious all their lives often died not in the hands of experts, but due to carelessness. After the dragon vortex, it would be the ice rain. This ice rain would probably kill a lot of people. In this case, I will diligently cultivate my magical techniques in the following days. I must cultivate the dragon vortex technique and the ice rain technique to a higher realm. A month later, Ning Fan suddenly stood up. His left eye was cold while his right eye was blazing hot. He pointed his right finger, and the black fire burned the sword-testing stone like a vortex. First revolution. The stone body slightly trembled. Second revolution. Stone chips began to peel off from the stone body. Third revolution. The stone body shook violently and faintly began to crack. A black fire dragon leaped out from the vortex and fiercely bit the sword-testing stone. The power of the fire increased. Instantly, the sword-testing stone cracked like clouds. However, this wasn't the end. Ning Fan's hand seals suddenly changed, and the dragon fire disappeared. What followed was 1,000 ice rain in the stone chamber. 1,000 ice rain turned into 1,000 ice thorns and fell down. Its power was enough to injure an intermediate harmonious spirit cultivator, but it didn't seem to be worth mentioning to a gold core expert. But when the ice rain hit the sword-testing stone, the sword-testing stone instantly let out a thunderous boom and shattered into pieces. The sword-testing stone that was strong enough to withstand a peak gold core attack was shattered just like that. The tremor spread from the stone chamber of Dual Cultivation Palace, turning into a strong earthquake that swept across the entire Dark Sparrow Valley. The experts of the sect were shocked and left their houses. When they knew that it wasn't an invasion, they heaved a sigh of relief and looked towards the direction of Dual Cultivation Palace. They were shocked to find that the tremor was caused by Ning Fan, who was in seclusion in Dual Cultivation Palace. What kind of magical technique is Elder Ning studying in the stone chamber? How could it be so powerful? In the White Palace, Bai Fading, who was condensing cold chi, suddenly stood up and stared at the Dual Cultivation Palace in disbelief. The others didn't know what the rumbling sound was, but he knew. Impossible. Ning Fan has only been in seclusion for 4 months, and he has already shattered the sword-testing stone. Bai Fading's face was filled with unwillingness. He had also shattered the sword-testing stone before, but that was the result of him continuously attacking the stone with magical power during his seclusion for dozens of years. However, Ning Fan had only been in seclusion for 4 months, and he had already shattered the sword-testing stone. It seemed that he couldn't underestimate this young man in this gamble. Humph! No matter what, I won't lose to you as long as I devour this 4th-grade cold chi. Bai Fading stared at the purple cold chi in the cold cauldron in front of him. I will never lose to Han Yuanji's disciple. Your superior grade magic treasure. This old man is taking it for sure. Chapter 103. In the 4th month, magical techniques soared in the stone chamber, and in the end, the sword testing stone was broken. In the 5th month, the sword chi scattered in all directions, accompanied by blazing fire chi and white bone sword shadows. In the 6th month, the stone chamber was quiet. Occasionally, there would be the sound of footsteps and the cry of a spirit. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. The stone chamber gradually quieted down. Only the occasional sound of burning earth fire could be heard. Vaguely, there were signs of the emergence of a divine weapon. Ning Fan had learned a few magical techniques. His two-sword chi became more proficient, and his comprehension became deeper. As for his body refining technique, he had mastered the Zhang 6-meter body. What made Ning Fan happy was the minor completion of the false thought art and defensive thought art. Inside the stone chamber, Ning Fan put one hand behind his back and flicked his other finger. Immediately, a sword light shot out from his finger and turned into fire. He stomped on the ground, causing the stone chamber to tremble. Countless white bone shadows appeared on the ground, and a faintly discernible blood line was condensed by his murderous aura and drifted among the shadows. After retrieving the two-sword chi, Ning Fan smiled. He had finally comprehended the minor completion of the two-sword chi. Now he didn't need to use his sword. He could activate the sword chi with just a stomp of his finger. He collected his thoughts, closed his eyes, and pointed at the space between his eyebrows. Immediately, silver light appeared around his body, and within the silver light, he grew to a height of 6 feet. His muscles were sturdy, and his strength was astonishing. His physique changed greatly, and he was no longer thin and weak. This technique was a body-refining technique that he cultivated. Compared to Moksha Emperor and Bone Emperor, who could transform into a 10,000-meter tall giant, the 6-meter height seemed insignificant. However, this was Ning Fan's first time cultivating a body-refining technique, which was already very rare. Moreover, after transforming into a 6-meter tall body, Ning Fan's physical defense doubled, and his strength increased by 30%. With the strength of his physical body, it wouldn't be difficult for him to kill a harmonious spirit with a single punch. This body-refining technique meant that even if Ning Fan's magical power was depleted in the future, he would still be able to fight. After all, the body-refining technique consumed the power of blood and chi, not the magical power. After retrieving the 6-meter image, Ning Fan heaved a sigh of relief. After resting for a moment, his eyes suddenly focused, and his appearance began to change rapidly. Meng Chu Xueqing, Zhou Ming, Nanyang Zi, Yuqi Sinister Sparrow. All the people whom Ning Fan had met before, and whose cultivation base was lower than his spirit sense realm, appeared one after another. It wasn't that the appearance was fake. Even the aura was exactly the same. False thought formula. This technique allowed him to change his body shape and conceal himself. Unless his spirit sense was higher than Ning Fan's, no one would be able to see through his disguise. Ning Fan's spirit sense had reached the half-step nascent soul realm. This meant that no one in Yu country would be able to see through his concealment. He changed back to his original appearance, dispelled the pseudo-thought mantra, and closed his eyes. A faintly discernible aura gradually rose within his body. All of a sudden, he patted his storage pouch and took out a mid-grade flying sword. He flicked his finger, and the flying sword suddenly changed direction after flying for 3 zhang. It turned around and stabbed towards Ning Fan's chest. A middle-grade flying sword. Unless Ning Fan activated the Zhang 16 physique, he would definitely die if the sword pierced through his chest. However, the strange thing was that when the mid-grade flying sword and dagger were 3 feet away from Ning Fan, they suddenly hit an invisible barrier and couldn't get any closer. The void in front of Ning Fan was reverberating with ripples like waves, revealing the aura of spirit sense. If any cultivator saw this, they would definitely be shocked, because this method of defending against the flying sword was actually completed with spirit sense. Defensive thought formula. Ning Fan kept the flying sword and revealed a carefree smile. The biggest gain from this seclusion was definitely the cultivation of the spirit sense formula. Before cultivating, Ning Fan had never thought that the spirit sense formula would be so mysterious that it was far beyond his expectation. In terms of profundity, it might not be weaker than the yin-yang transformation. After swallowing the spirit-refining grass, only nascent soul realm cultivators would be able to see through his concealment and disguise. After shattering 5 magical treasure spirits, the spirit sense formula would be able to withstand the killing blow of a nascent soul realm cultivator. Of course, Ning Fan's cultivation of these 2 techniques wasn't perfect. If the spirit sense formula was cultivated to grand completion, it could even conceal itself from spirit sense, which was far beyond one's own detection. As for the spirit sense formula, Ning Fan's limit was to use it once a day. Using it a second time would cause great damage to spirit sense, and using it a third time would definitely shatter his sea of consciousness. If he wanted to cultivate the spirit sense formula to a higher realm, he would need more spirit-refining grass and magical treasure spirits. Spirit sense formula was still manageable, as there were traces of it in the Rain Immortal world, but spirit-refining grass. Ning Fan couldn't imagine whether there would be a weirdo like Meng Chu, who could grow spirit-refining grass by accident in the Rain Immortal world. Half a year of seclusion seemed to be very successful. Ning Fan's magical power didn't increase, but his abilities had gained a few more tricks. There seemed to be only one thing left, which was to refine the separation slayer. Ning Fan walked to the front of the smelting cauldron and drew out the earth fire. He opened his mouth and spat out the starlight sword shadow, which turned into a sparkling and translucent flying sword. He held it in his hand and looked at it carefully, as if he had made a decision. After a long time, he shook the cauldron ring and took out a section of jade-like rib. Changing the sword bone wouldn't change the essence of the flying sword, but in order to avoid triggering the phenomenon of stars in daytime, Ning Fan still spent some immortal jades to set up a pill-grade grand formation in front of the smelting cauldron to conceal the chi of treasure refining. The current him was no longer a nestling cultivator. Thinking back to what he did in 7 Apricot City in the past, he knew that it was extremely dangerous. Even though he had obtained the memory of the immortal emperors, he was still a teenager. His life experience was merely copied from the ancient chaos era, and he didn't have his own feelings. Today, the battles that he had gone through made him realize the truth of the cultivation world. It wasn't as ugly as he had imagined, and it wasn't like the mythical paradise, but a complicated place. There were emotions, love, conspiracy, and hatred in the cultivation world. It was no different from the world of mortals. If he was careless and died from a sneak attack, it would be too unjust, so he had to be cautious. There was an old saying in the cultivation world: you never know what kind of enemy is lurking in the dark, spying on you. Ning Fan's sword sense could kill any expert below early gold core realm, but Bone Sovereign's extreme realm divine intent seemed to be stronger than Ning Fan's. Ning Fan had the inheritance of the ancient chaos era, but the little demoness of the godly void pavilion had the nobler inheritance of the godly void pavilion. Above the 4 heavens, there were countless inheritances of immortal emperors and fiend gods. There would always be someone better than you in the universe. Ning Fan knew this very clearly from his own experience, so he had to be cautious. Only by being cautious could he survive in this chaotic world. His mind was spinning, and his state of mind was vaguely improved. He sighed slightly and put away his expression. Then he put the separation slayer into the smelting cauldron. The treasure refining technique in the ancient chaos era's memory is called the 1,000 refining technique. It's called the 100 refining technique, the 1,000 refining technique, the 1,000 refining technique, and the 10,000 refining technique. In order to refine a magical treasure, one has to refine at least 1,000 times. In order to give birth to a treasure spirit, one has to refine at least 10,000 times. But in fact, it doesn't mean that a magical treasure must have a treasure spirit. There's nothing absolute in this world. It's better if a flying sword has a spirit, but it's best if it's a heavy sword without a spirit. Ning Fan murmured to himself. Most of the swords worn by cultivators were flying swords. They were used to perform hand seals to fly and slash the enemy, but in ancient times, the fiend gods used their strength to break the heavens. They had to transform themselves into 10,000 zhonglong and engage in a hand-to-hand combat. The sword used to slash the enemy was called the heavy sword. The flying sword emphasized on being light and ethereal, while the heavy sword emphasized on being able to wipe out 1,000 enemies. If the flying sword had a spirit, it would be more accurate and easier for the cultivator to control it with his spirit sense. But if the heavy sword had a spirit, it would be hard to unite with the sword. When facing the enemy, it would be hard to ensure that the sword chi wouldn't be rusty. The Separation Slayer didn't need a sword spirit, because Ning Fan had decided to refine it into a heavy sword. However, this didn't mean that he had to destroy the flying sword form of the Separation Slayer. The treasure refining technique of the ancient Chaos era, the 1,000 refining technique, was nothing special, but it had a shocking profundity. If the flying sword reached 100,000 refinements, it would be able to forge a magical treasure with 2 forms. In other words, Ning Fan could switch the Separation Slayer between a flying sword and a heavy sword with a single thought. This might be shocking in New Country, but it wasn't surprising in the Rain Immortal world. True magical treasures did not focus solely on power. Instead, they focused more on change. It was said that the lost Heavenly Dipper 36 transformations and Earthly Fiend 72 transformations were extremely profound transformation techniques. Putting away all the distracting thoughts, Ning Fan began to control the earth fire to separate the bone of the Separation Slayer. At the same time, he used his spirit sense to control the fire to calcinate the rib of Bone Sovereign. The rib of Bone Sovereign was the bone of a void fragmentation old monster. It had a trace of spirituality and pride, unwilling to become a material for a magical treasure. Therefore, it didn't melt in the earth fire. It was this trace of spirituality that allowed Bone Sovereign to use the bone searching technique to locate the location of the rib and confirm Ning Fan's identity. The spirituality couldn't be extracted, but it could be erased. Ning Fan's eyes glinted with cold light. His sword sense swept across and went into the rib bone. With a fierce scrape, the spirituality of the rib bone was completely scraped away. A trace of white chi was evaporated in the flame and dissipated. In this way, no matter how heaven-defying Bone Sovereign was, he wouldn't be able to locate the rib. The rib was calcinated in the fire for 3 days and finally melted into a jade-like bone liquid. Ning Fan didn't wait any longer and immediately used his spirit sense to control the fire to force out the Separation Slayer. After the sword bone was extracted, the grade of Separation Slayer almost dropped. Almost immediately, Ning Fan guided the bone liquid and fused it into the body of the sword. The Separation Slayer that was as light as water and dazzling with starlight suddenly began to transform. The 3 feet of starlight became 7 feet long, and the blade was 1 foot wide. The body of the sword was like a white bone, white and lusterless. It emitted a heavy and oppressive killing intent, sharp and domineering. This was a heavy sword, a giant white bone sword. Its grade had reached the peak of intermediate grade. It had advanced by more than 1 realm. Separation Slayer, the form of a heavy sword refined. But it wasn't over yet. When the body of the sword was condensed, Ning Fan flicked his sleeve and swept away the water in the sword pond. He then patted his storage pouch and took out the thunder water that he had exchanged in the Merit Palace. This water was the cold condensing spring water used to refine immemorial divine weapons. Its effect was to add a trace of thunder power to the immemorial divine weapons. The only pity was that this thunder water was too rare. When the ancient gods and devils refined divine weapons, there would usually be a pool of thunder water. But now, Ning Fan only had a bottle of cold condensing magical treasure. It wasn't enough, so he had to dilute it and make do with it. He shook the cauldron ring and added the cold moon spring water from Hu Clan into the sword pond and mixed it with the thunder water. The cold moon spring water was actually a famous cold condensing spring water, but it was too ordinary compared to the thunder water. The cold condensing spring water was already present. The last step was to condense the sword body. He patted the furnace and extinguished the fire. Ning Fan used his spirit sense, and the Separation Slayer was immediately drawn into the sword pond. Inside the pond, there was a sizzling sound of steam. As the thunder water evaporated, traces of thunder light separated from the water and went into the giant sword. On the body of the sword, obscure thunder lines were drawn. The sword was formed. Ning Fan waved his hand, and the giant sword fell into his hand. Suddenly, his wrist sank, and the sword tip fell to the ground, sinking 3 feet into the ground. So heavy! This weight was at least 5,000 jin. Not to mention the power of the thunder, the power of a gold core cultivator would be extremely horrifying. A careless mistake could even kill a gold core cultivator. Ha! That with a cold shout, silver light shone from his body. Ning Fan's strength rose sharply. He pulled out the giant sword from the ground and fiercely stabbed it into the ground. After a loud bang, the ground was shaved off by one zhang. The cut was as smooth as a mirror. One should know that the rock on the ground was enough to defend against an early gold core cultivator's all-out attack. A heavy sword without a sharp edge, great craftsmanship is useless. When the heavy sword produces a sharp edge, there is no competition between heaven and earth. In this way my seclusion has come to an end. Time really flies. This is the life of a cultivator. Ning Fan moved his mind. The giant sword turned back into the starlight flying sword, and was kept into his body. He then sat cross-legged and adjusted the magical power in his body. Chapter 104. No one knew what Ning Fan had done in the stone chamber. As the date of the battle between Ning Fan and Bai Fading approached, many older experts began to rush to Sinister Sparrow Sect, waiting for this rare battle. A square purple jade platform was suspended in the sky above the outer valley of Sinister Sparrow Sect. It was specially built by Sinister Sparrow for this battle. This purple jade platform was very similar to the jade platform of Heavenly Beast Sect in the past. This also marked that Sinister Sparrow Sect had officially become the #1 evil sect in Yu Country after the destruction of Heavenly Beast Sect. There were old experts like Revered Bai and new young experts like Ning Fan in the sect. Sinister Sparrow Sect's prestige was like the sun in the sky. Streaks of flowing light streaked across the sky. The harmonious spirit old monsters traveled on their own in the sky. The wealthy ones came on the immortal cloud. And the famous gold core old monsters came on the ships, and traveled in a grand manner. The 500 eagle guards of Sinister Sparrow Sect were responsible for maintaining the security of Sinister Sparrow Sect, and receiving the guests. Each of the eagle guards was at least at the 6th level of the vein opening realm. They all had an indifferent expression on their faces, as they rode on their flying eagle demonic beasts, to receive the vein opening realm guests, to the floating jade platform. The commander of the eagle guards, Eagle Yang, was in charge of receiving those with high status. Eagle Yang was a middle-aged man with a scar on his face. He was wearing black armor, and was riding on a 3-zhang-long silver eagle. Whenever he saw an expert flying towards him, he would immediately greet them. However, his expression and attitude were different according to the opponent's cultivation base. As a late harmonious spirit elder of Sinister Sparrow Sect, and the commander of the Eagle Guards, Eagle Yang had his own pride. To the harmonious spirit experts, he would only greet them with a smile. Only to the gold core experts would he greet them. Eagle Yang was even more respectful towards the top 10 experts of Yu Country, and even the more respected old ancestor level experts of Yu Country. Commander Eagle Yang, nice to meet you. I'm an elder of Purple Light Sect Songhang. So it's Elder Songhang, nice to meet you. Eagle Yang put on a fake smile, because Songhang was only an intermediate harmonious spirit elder. This old man is Qing Qingzi, a rogue cultivator. Nice to meet you, Commander Eagle Yang. Oh, so it's fellow Qing Qingzi. Fellow Taoist, please follow me to the purple jade platform. Eagle Yang's tone eased slightly. This Qing Qingzi was an early golden core cultivator. Although he was a rogue cultivator, he was not to be underestimated. I am Lady Yin Hua, here to attend Sinister Sparrow Sect's grand meeting. Hiss. I didn't expect Madam to come to my sect to watch the battle. Please forgive me for not going out to welcome you. Eagle Yang's gaze was respectful. Occasionally, he would look at Madam Yin Hua's delicate body and swallow his saliva. Lady Yin Hua was known as the #1 beauty in Yu Country. Although her cultivation was only at the late harmonious spirit realm, there were very few male cultivators who could remain unmoved in front of her. Moreover, Her husband was the famous old ancestor of Fire Cloud sect in Yu country. It was a tradition in the cultivation world for beauties to marry old monsters. Moreover, his identity was something that Eagle Yang did not dare to slight. The only thing that puzzled Eagle Yang was why the dignified Lady Yunhua would come to a place like Sinister Sparrow sect. One should know that Fire Cloud old ancestor was a very narrow-minded person. He would never allow his wife to be spied on by any man. He had always forbidden Lady Yunhua from leaving Fire Cloud sect. Since Lady Yunhua was here, it must be an order from Fire Cloud old ancestor. Fire Cloud old ancestor had something important for her to do. This matter must not be known by anyone, including the sect master and the higher-ups of Fire Cloud sect. Bah! Why should I meddle in other people's business? If I get involved in unnecessary trouble, the consequences can be imagined. Eagle Yang shuddered when he thought of the scariness of Fire Cloud old ancestor. He immediately shifted his gaze away from Lady Yunhua's delicate body. The time was half a month later than the time of the battle, but the main character hadn't appeared yet. The guests were happy to wait. Anyway, cultivators didn't lack a few days. A few days wasn't even enough for them to go into seclusion. With so many old monsters gathered here, naturally, they would exchange their cultivation experiences. Perhaps, this was the reason why many old monsters attended the grand meeting. But there are so many old monsters this time. Eagle Yang shook his scarred face and sighed. Immediately, a faintly discernible silhouette appeared behind him, and said indifferently, "Of course. These experts are naturally here to support this old man." The voice appeared without any warning. Eagle Yang felt a chill down his spine. He immediately turned around and heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that the person who spoke was someone he knew. In the cultivation world, it was extremely dangerous for one to be invaded from behind, even if it was in the territory of his own sect. Eagle Yang greets revered Bai. Eagle Yang's eyes swept across Bai Fading's body, revealing a trace of fiery passion. Revered Bai's cultivation base had improved again. He was afraid that Revered Bai's cultivation base had already touched the bottleneck of late Gold Core realm. Dispense with the formalities. Is Ning Fan here? Bai Fading squinted his old eyes and said in an old-fashioned tone. And no, Elder Ning seems to be still in seclusion. Umph. What an impolite fellow. How dare he make Senior wait for him? Bai Fading knitted his brows in dissatisfaction. He purposely came out of seclusion half a month later, so that Ning Fan would have to wait for him for half a month to grind down Ning Fan's spirit. He had never thought that Ning Fan would be so arrogant as to come out of seclusion even later than him. Yes. That Elder Ning is really rude. How dare he make Revered Bai wait for him? Eagle Yang smiled apologetically. Of course, he would do whatever Bai Fading said. But as soon as his words came out, a sense of crisis that was even sharper than when Bai Fading appeared came from behind him. For a moment, not only Eagle Yang, but also Bai Fading's eyes revealed a slight shock, because even he didn't know how and when the person appeared. Oh, Commander Eagle Yang seems to have a lot of complaints about me. A teenager in white robe and black cloak appeared behind Eagle Yang without any warning. His face carried a vague smile, but when he met his eyes, Eagle Yang's heart shuddered. He had an illusion that he would die as long as Ning Fan willed it. Elder Ning, Eagle Yang misspoke. Please forgive me, Elder Ning. Scared. Very scared. This was the first time Eagle Yang was so close to Ning Fan. Only now did he realize how terrifying Ning Fan was. It turned out that Ning Fan's reputation wasn't baseless. It was earned with his true strength. Hee. What's wrong? Commander Eagle Yang doesn't need to be flustered. Senior Bai, judging from your condition, it seems like you have just come out from seclusion. Your magical power hasn't recovered to its peak yet. It seems like you still need a few days to adjust your chi. Junior Ning Fan will be waiting for you on the Amethyst Sky platform. I like your title of Revered Devil very much. Ning Fan cupped his fists and flew away with a sway of his body. Bai Fading's facial expression turned extremely ugly. How could he not hear the sarcasm in Ning Fan's words? Ning Fan was mocking him for being disrespectful and speaking ill of a junior behind his back. Humph. You can only be arrogant for now. During the battle, I will let you know the consequences of offending a senior. Bai Fading said with hatred. The moment Ning Fan appeared, Lady Yunhua, who was chatting with the others lazily on the jade platform, suddenly raised her eyebrows in surprise. Could this kid really be like what my husband said? If so, I will complete my husband's task. The bet is starting. The bet is starting. Place your bets. On the Amethyst Sky platform, a young man who looked like a beggar was wildly setting up a bet. On the Sky platform, many cultivators had nothing to do while waiting to watch the battle, so they set up their stalls and exchanged their useless magical treasures and pills with others. However, this was the first time they heard of a beggar setting up a bet. The young beggar had messy hair and ragged clothes. Although his clothes were dirty, his facial features were quite handsome. His beard was unkempt, which made him look somewhat masculine. As soon as they heard that this beggar was going to start a bet, many bored cultivators gathered around him to see what he was going to bet on. The bet is starting. The bet is starting. Fellow Taoists, quickly take out your immortal jades. It's a small bet for a big bet. The beggar raised his voice, as if he was afraid that others couldn't hear him. Immediately, a few old monsters on the Amethyst Sky platform showed their displeasure. What's this kid's cultivation base? How dare he try to please the crowd? A late harmonious spirit old monster said sternly. Early harmonious spirit, should we kill him? Another intermediate harmonious spirit devil cultivator said plainly. Forget it. This is the territory of Sinister Sparrow. Don't cause any trouble. The beggar didn't seem to know that his loud voice had caused a lot of trouble. His expression was still as indifferent as before. Many experts were interested in betting. This was something that could only be seen in the mortal world. It could be considered as an experience. Hehe. Fellow Taoist, since you are starting a bet, what are you betting on? How are you going to bet? Many old monsters asked with a smile. Oh haha, I forgot. Today I, Shu Buyan, am starting a bet. Naturally, it's about something improvised. Let's bet on the battle between Bai, and revered Bai and Ning Fan. What do you think? Hiss. Each of the old monsters' expression changed. This unknown early harmonious spirit beggar had the guts to bet on the battle between Ning Fan and revered Bai. Regardless of the odds, betting on the outcome of the battle might offend some people. Forget it, let's listen to the odds first. Each of the old monsters craned their neck, waiting for the beggar's next words. However, the beggar only hummed a tune and didn't say anything else. Cough cough cough. Fellow Taoist, you forgot to tell us the odds. How are we going to bet? An old monster reminded him. Oh, I forgot again. I'm sorry, my memory isn't that good. Oh right, what are we betting on? I forgot. Aren't you betting on the battle between revered Bai and Elder Ning? An old monster said unhappily. Aya, so that's how it is. How about this? I will write the odds on the board so that I won't forget about it. The beggar patted his storage pouch and took out an old wooden board. There were all kinds of bets written on it. It seemed like the beggar always gambled here. He used his finger as a blade and used his magical power to cut off the surface of the words. He then took out a brush and dipped it in saliva. There was no ink, but he could still write on the wooden board. Hiss. This wooden board is a 10,000 years heavenly Nanmu. Aya. This is the divine brush. It can create words without ink. Legend has it that only the people of Rain Palace can possess it. Who is this beggar? Could he be a divine guard of Rain Palace? The beggar twisted the divine brush and wrote a few crooked words on the wooden board. Ning Fan's win 1-1. Ning Fan's draw 1-100. Ning Fan's loss 1-1000. After writing a few lines of words, the beggar seemed to be very satisfied with his handwriting. He nodded his head and put all the old monsters aside. He forgot again. He forgot that he was setting up a bet again. The other old monsters sucked in a breath of cold air when they saw the odds. Hiss. Was this stall owner a madman? How could he set such odds? If they bet on Ning Fan's win, they would bet 1 immortal jade. If they won, they would only get 1 immortal jade in return. If they bet on Ning Fan's draw, they would get 1 immortal jade in return. If they bet on Ning Fan's loss, they would get 1 immortal jade in return. How was this a bet? This was clearly giving away money. After all, everyone was convinced that Ning Fan would be defeated. There was even no possibility of a draw. No matter what, Bai Fading was a famous old monster in Yu country. If he lost to a young man, he wouldn't be able to live anymore. If they bet on Ning Fan's loss, they would definitely make a profit. If they bet on Ning Fan's draw, they would only lose one immortal jade even if they lost. However, if Ning Fan really went against the natural order, or if Revered Bai didn't want to win unfairly and allowed Ning Fan to end the match in a draw, they couldn't ignore this possibility. If that was the case, they would still have a chance of making a huge profit if they bet on Ning Fan's draw. As for betting on Ning Fan's victory, none of the old experts believed that Ning Fan would win. Plus, if they bet on Ning Fan's victory, they would only get one piece of immortal jade in return. If they lost, they would get nothing, and the probability of losing was almost certain. Only a fool would throw money at Ning Fan. I bet 1,000 immortal jades on Ning Fan's loss. But I have a question. If I win, I will get 1 million immortal jades in return. Do you have any? The old monster's tone was indifferent, but the question he asked had caught the attention of many old monsters. It was the stall owner's business whether or not they offended anyone in this bet. Since there was a chance to make money, these old monsters naturally wouldn't let it go. No old monster wouldn't be tempted by this almost guaranteed win, and 1,000 times profit. Even those who were previously extremely dissatisfied with the beggar's gambling had changed their views one after another. They were tempted and wanted to gamble. However, the odds of 1,000 times. How could this beggar have so many immortal jades to set up a stall? After hearing the question, the beggar who was admiring his own handwriting suddenly turned his head and revealed a surprised look. I'm sorry. I forgot to set up a bet again. You asked me if I have money? Are you kidding me? Look at my attire. Do I look like I don't have money? His voice was raised by an octave, making it a little sharp. Each of the old monsters showed a look of disdain. You're dressed like a beggar. From your appearance, you obviously don't have any money. If it wasn't because of the beggar's 10,000-year heavenly Phoebe wood and the stroke of God, none of the old monsters would talk to him. Feeling everyone's disdain, the beggar seemed extremely dissatisfied. He frowned and patted his storage pouch, taking out a shabby earthen basin. There were 10 immortal jades in it. These are my belongings. Tell me, is it enough for the bet? I will use these immortal jades to bet. 10 immortal jades? Are you messing with us? Each of the old monsters showed a look of displeasure. 10 immortal jades was impossible to bet. Was he trying to get something for nothing? Are you all blind? These are 10 immortal jades. The beggar showed a look of disbelief. This is 10 immortal jades. There is no 11th immortal jades. Bah! Nonsense. No matter how poor I am, I won't be so poor that I only have 10 immortal jades. Treasure cornucopia. Pour it out. The beggar showed a look of anger. He pointed at the earthen basin and turned it upside down, pouring out 10 immortal jades. But when the 10 immortal jades left the basin, there were still 10 immortal jades left. 10 immortal jades were poured out, and there were 10 more. In an instant, the ground was filled with immortal jades. There were thousands of them. Who said I don't have money? I will smash you to death with money, the beggar shouted. All the old monsters present were shocked. Chapter 105. According to the legends, the cornucopia was in the hands of the Rain World's divine emperor. It was said that all the wealth in the world was contained within it. I'm afraid that the earthen pot in front of me is the cornucopia. No, it must be the cornucopia. 10 immortal jades that can never be used up. If a cultivator had the leisure to spend 8 to 10 years on it, it wouldn't be a dream to have millions of immortal jades. How is this a beggar? He's obviously a local tycoon. This person must have a respectable status in Rain Palace, although his cultivation base was low and his memory was terrible. Alright, fellow Taoist Xu Buyun has the cornucopia. I bet 1,000 immortal jades on Ning Fan's defeat. Another 100 immortal jades on Ning Fan's draw. I bet 3,000 immortal jades on Ning Fan's defeat, and 1,000 immortal jades on Ning Fan's draw. I bet 5,000 immortal jades on Ning Fan's defeat, and 1,000 immortal jades on Ning Fan's draw. One by one, the old monsters started to bet on both sides, both on Ning Fan's defeat and a draw. All of this was to be cautious. Even if no old monster thought that Ning Fan had the strength to fight Revered By to a draw, it was still better to be cautious. What if Revered By found his conscience and ended the match in a draw? In that case, even if he lost one, he could still make a profit. In short, it was a sure win. This beggar, Shu Buyun, must have too much money to burn his hands. That's why he used the cornucopia to give away his wealth. He's really a good person. But it makes sense. He has the cornucopia with him, and his money can't be used up. Perhaps he's giving away his wealth to comprehend and break through to the intermediate harmonious spirit realm. This person must have a profound background. Although his cultivation base is low, he mustn't be provoked. There's a void fragmentation expert in Rain Palace. He could flatten Yu country with just a thought. No one bet on Ning Fan's victory. Even those young disciples who supported Ning Fan's victory also bet on Ning Fan's defeat under the temptation of benefits. The news of the beggar's gambling spread like wildfire in Sinister Sparrow sect. No one would refuse an unexpected fortune. When they heard that the beggar was a divine guard of Rain Palace, all of them gave up the thought of killing him and robbing him, even though he was only a harmonious spirit expert. The only thing that bothered the gamblers was that the beggars had a bad memory. Therefore, once they placed their bets, they had to write down a voucher to prevent the beggars from reneging on their debts. Immediately, dozens of old monsters took turns to monitor the beggar, fearing that he would run away with the money. The people of Rain Palace couldn't be offended, but at the very least, after winning the bet, he couldn't not pay the money. This was the bottom line. When this matter reached Bai Feiting's ears, a complacent expression appeared on his face. Countless old monsters had bet that he would win, and no one had bet that he would lose. This was a good thing. I bet 10,000 immortal jades that I will win. He would be a fool if he didn't take the benefits. He took out his entire fortune and placed a heavy bet, not even betting on a draw. This was confidence. He believed that he would definitely win. If he won the bet, he would have to return 10 million immortal jades. Even a void fragmentation realm expert would be tempted by such a huge amount of immortal jade. This was a windfall. But Bai Feiting didn't expect the beggar to pour 10 million immortal jades from a small pot. How long would that take? If he only poured 10 immortal jades at a time, he would only ask for 100,000 immortal jades from the beggar after that. That would be considered as giving face to the Rain Palace. If he took more immortal jades, it would be a crime for him to have too many immortal jades. If he was targeted by the nascent soul cultivators of other countries, it would be a disaster and the loss would outweigh the gain. Besides, taking less immortal jades would also be considered as a kind gesture to the Rain Palace. As a matter of fact, most of the old monsters had the same thought as Bai Feiting. This was the prudent way of life of the old monsters. One shouldn't go to the extreme gradually. Almost all the cultivators on the Jade platform had bet on Ning Fan's defeat or a draw. The beggar revealed a bored look and looked at those who placed their bets with disdain. This time, I'm going to make a fortune, thanks to that Ning Fan. His heart was filled with complacency. He was happy that he had thought of such a way to earn money. Everyone in the world was blinded by ignorance. But he, Yun Bushu, could see that Ning Fan was hiding his strength with just a glance. He liked this kind of battle, where there was a great disparity in strength. It was the best chance for him to earn money. Moreover, it was also a chance to observe Ning Fan. Is this person the one Big Brother is looking for? His eyes flashed with a rare radiance. But at this moment, a lady in blue walked over gracefully and placed a bet. Immediately, the beggar retracted his radiance and revealed a roguish look. What do you want to bet? Ning Fan wins. 10,000 immortal jades. The lady in blue said firmly. The beggar's eyes lit up as he sized up the lady in blue. This lady was only an intermediate harmonious spirit cultivator. She shouldn't be able to see through Ning Fan's strength. Perhaps, there was another reason why she bet on Ning Fan's victory. She wanted to save Ning Fan's reputation, even if she was going to lose. After all, everyone bet on Ning Fan's defeat. It was too unpleasant to hear. You have 10,000 immortal jades? The beggar sneered. I do. Dad, lend me your storage pouch for a while. The lady in blue pulled Sinister Sparrow's sleeve and came to the stall. Under Sinister Sparrow's bitter smile, she took away the 10,000 immortal jades that were equivalent to his life. May heir, although Dad is the sect master of Sinister Sparrow sect, money can't be wasted like this. Dad, are you just going to watch Ning Fan lose? Do you have the heart to do that? Lan Mei looked at the beggar with a bitter and hateful expression. This beggar was too hateful. How dare he humiliate my husband like this? If this person wasn't related to Rain Palace, I would have taught him a good lesson. Fine, I'll bet then. Sinister Sparrow's eyes recalled the day when Ning Fan killed Wang Yao. He seemed to have made up his mind. Although by fating had devoured the 4th grade cold chi, Ning Fan still had a chance of winning. Dad, you're the best. When Lan Mei was about to place the bet, a weak voice with a hint of anger came from the side. Me. I also bet that Brother Fan will win. I bet 100,000 immortal jades. Cece, give me the money. Little Ji he looked at the beggar indignantly, as if he was her enemy. As for Lan Mei, she immediately turned her head with a hint of jealousy in her eyes. She naturally knew the lady in front of her. But when she saw that Ji he was an early harmonious spirit expert, even Lan Mei was slightly moved. She knew that Ji he had only cultivated for less than a year. She didn't even cultivate seriously. She had secretly inquired about the background of 7 Apricot City. Although she didn't mean any harm, she was just jealous. As for Lan Mei, she saw a pure and holy white-clothed lady standing beside Ji he. Her cultivation base was unfathomable. Her appearance wasn't inferior to her at all. Cece. This person seemed to be Ning Fan's cauldron. Ji he has reached the harmonious spirit realm. Cece is actually a gold core cultivator. Ning Fan's foresight is really good. But they actually bet 100,000 immortal jades. Damn it, I lost. No. I want to raise the bet. Dad, I also want to bet 100,000 immortal jades. Lan Mei said decisively. Cough, 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 Dad has no more money. Give it all, give it all. Under Sinister Sparrow's helpless gaze, Lan Mei took away all his storage pouches. This time, it was the beggar's turn to be in a difficult position. This time, I won't lose money, right? Ning Fan will definitely win. These women want to win 200,000 immortal jades from my hands. After deducting the money those old monsters gave me, I will only earn 100,000 immortal jades. I Yin Bushu, am known as never losing. Am I going to lose money in Sinister Sparrow sect? No, I shouldn't be that unlucky. I Yin Bushu have never lost. His eyes revealed a trace of pride and arrogance. Even when facing Moksha Emperor, he had never admitted defeat. While he was deep in thought, another cold voice came faintly, turning Yin Bushu's pride and arrogance that had just risen into the air into a state of vomiting blood. Sinister Sparrow sect's disciple, Bai Lu, bet 10,000 immortal jades on Ning Fan's victory. Bai Lu's thoughts were complicated, but she still came. Sister Bai Lu, you are here too? You really have feelings for Ning Fan. Lan Mei smiled meaningfully. Bah, I have nothing to do with him. It's just that he will win anyway. Why can't I use his money to spend? Besides, this money is pooled together by the Sisters of Dual Cultivation Palace. Who doesn't want to win money? Bai Lu's expression was cold, but a trace of worry flashed across her eyes. It seemed like she wasn't so sure that Ning Fan would win. On the contrary, she was somewhat worried, but no one knew whether she was worried about the money or Ning Fan. Lan Mei still wanted to tease Bai Lu, but the next moment, a soft voice sounded, making the beggar want to cry but have no tears. I'm Yin Hua. I bet on fellow Taoist Ning Fan's victory. The bet is 100,000 immortal jades. As soon as the words came out, the purple jade sky platform was in an uproar. Ji he, Lan Mei, Si Wuxia and Bai Lu's eyes were filled with hostility as they stared at the voluptuous woman. What was the relationship between this woman and Ning Fan? Could it be? As for the other old monsters, they had a different thought. Compared to revered Bai, Fire Cloud sect was more willing to befriend Ning Fan. Could it be because of the relationship between Ning Fan and Black Devil Ning of Ning City? Were they trying to curry favor with Black Devil Ning? Or perhaps it was because Fire Cloud sect was fortunate enough to be the first to obtain Black Devil Ning's nascent formation pill. Chapter 106. Lady Yunhua was wearing a palace dress, looking graceful and graceful. Facing the hostile gazes of Lan Mei and the other women, she smiled tenderly. She saw through their thoughts and didn't explain anything. She bowed politely and took her leave. As for Sinister Sparrow, he immediately claimed that he was going to entertain Lady Yunhua, and found an excuse to escape from Lan Mei's sight. What Yunhua left to the four women was only the back view of his peerless beauty. From afar, Ning Fan scanned the area with his spirit sense, and understood everything that had happened here. Whether it was Ji Lan Mei, or Bai Lu's hypocrisy, all of them warmed his heart. He didn't care about the reputation of the bet, because he knew that after this battle, everyone who bet on his loss would regret it. There were only two people that he cared about, Lady Yunhua and the beggar stall owner. Ning Fan's eyes gazed deeply at Lady Yunhua's back with a strange expression. He had never met Lady Yunhua before, and she was the wife of the dignified Fire Cloud ancestor. Naturally, she wouldn't have a romantic relationship with him. She must have been instructed by Fire Cloud ancestor to be nice to him. But why would a dignified Fire Cloud ancestor treat a puny harmonious spirit expert so well? To befriend the great-grandson of Black Devil Ning? If it was just for a nascent formation pill, the price she paid was a little too high. 100,000 immortal jades were enough to buy 2 nascent formation pills in other countries. Since Fire Cloud sect did this, they must be showing goodwill. But why would they show goodwill to me? This matter bothered him, and when his eyes swept across the beggar stall owner, his heart shuddered. He had seen this person before. In 7 Apricot City, he was one of the 3 void fragmentation experts who chased away Moksha Emperor. Ning Fan's eyes turned cold. Why did this person come to Sinister Sparrow sect? Was it related to him? Or was he here to cheat money? Ning Fan secretly scanned the beggar with his spirit sense, and felt that this person's cultivation base was unfathomable. As for the beggar, there seemed to be a trace of indistinct aura flowing around his body. Void spirit intent. When the void spirit intent lightly touched Ning Fan's spirit sense, Ning Fan felt as if his body was frozen. His sea of consciousness almost collapsed. In his mind, the scenes of the past suddenly began to reverse and be forgotten. This person is indeed the void fragmentation realm old monster I met the other day. Moreover, his void spirit intent is probably related to forgetting. Inside Ning Fan's body, a dim silver light emerged. He struggled violently to break free from the divine intent, and withdrew his spirit sense. After pondering for a moment, his figure flickered, and he appeared in front of the women. A dignified void fragmentation old monster actually came to the evil sect, where a gold core realm expert was present to set up a bet. This person was indeed an unusual one. When this person left 7 Apricot City that day, he used his magical power to heal the injuries of the 7 Apricot Devil cultivators. This made Ning Fan have a good impression of him. However, even though he had a good impression of him, he couldn't pretend that nothing had happened when this man used his reputation to cheat the old monsters of their money. Why don't I take a gamble too? I bet 50,000 immortal jades on Ning Fan. Ning Fan patted his storage pouch, and a pile of immortal jades appeared in front of the beggar. For an instant, the beggar wanted to cry but had no tears. In addition to Ning Fan's bet, it seemed like he wouldn't be able to earn any more money. He was afraid that he would have to compensate Ning Fan and the girls. As for the 4 women, when they heard Ning Fan's voice, they turned around in disbelief with different expressions. Brother Fan, I miss you so much. Ning Fan, you have come out from seclusion. Master. Humph. The last humph was naturally from Bai Lu. She felt slightly relieved when she saw Ning Fan, but her pretty face darkened, and she turned to leave. Her complicated expression fell into Ning Fan's eyes, and turned into a trace of inexplicable meaning. Immediately, his arms were filled with a familiar fragrance. Jihi, this little girl had started to grow after half a year. Moreover, this silly little girl had actually broken through to the harmonious spirit realm. She was born with the physique of bewitching bones. She was indeed monstrous, Brother Fan, this stinky beggar bet that you would lose. I'm so angry. Ji pointed at the beggar and complained. Ning Fan didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Don't be angry. He will give us money anyway. This isn't the place to talk. Cece, let's go to our seats. Ning Fan pretended to be relaxed, as if he didn't know that the beggar was a void fragmentation expert. He pulled Lan Mei, Ji and Si Wuxia to leave. However, before they could take 2 steps, the beggar's eyes changed and revealed a trace of doubt. Then, he shook his head regretfully. Very similar. But there's no response from the clan Jade. This kid doesn't have the rain jade on him. He isn't the person that Big Brother is looking for. The clue of Ning family in Hai Ning has also been cut off. He waved his palm, and took out a blue jade in the shape of a raindrop. He revealed a look of deep regret. But immediately, his eyes turned blank, as if he had forgotten everything. What happened to me just now? Why are there so many immortal jades? Haha. Those idiots must be giving me money again. I wonder if they are betting on Ning Fan's defeat or a draw. Let me see. Sinister Sparrow Lan Mei, 100,000 immortal jades, Ning Fan wins. Ning City Jihi Cece, 100,000 immortal jades, Ning Fan wins. Sinister Sparrow Bai Lu, 10,000 immortal jades, Ning Fan wins. Fire Cloud Sect Yin Hua, 100,000 immortal jades, Ning Fan wins, and Ning Fan, 50,000 immortal jades, Ning Fan wins. How could this be? Why are there so many people betting on Ning Fan's victory? I can't earn any money anymore. I've suffered a huge loss. His eyes followed the direction where Ning Fan and the others left and murmured to himself. Similar. His back looks very similar to Big Brother Yin Tianjue. Is it him? Did I meet him just now? Damn it. I've forgotten the result of the detection. Did the rain jade emit any light? It probably didn't. It's hard. 800 cultivation countries are looking for one person. When will they find him? Ning Fan didn't know about the beggar's words. He had heard about the Rain Divine Palace using the strength of 800 cultivation countries to search for one person. But he didn't know that this matter was related to him. After bringing Ji and the other girls to their seats, Ning Fan's relaxed expression suddenly turned serious. The pressure that the beggar gave him was too great. Ordinary people wouldn't be able to feel that pressure. Not even the void spirit intent of the beggar could sense it. However, Ning Fan's sword consciousness wasn't any weaker than the void fragmentation realm. How could he not see it? The beggar's void fragmentation cultivation base could only be described as terrifying. Unless he reached the void refinement realm, he wouldn't even be qualified to face a void fragmentation old monster. Brother Fan, why didn't you teach that beggar a lesson? Ji raised her head indignantly. Silly girl, alright. Stay here with Cece and wait for me. There were some things that Ning Fan couldn't explain to Ji. The more he knew, the worse it would be. His eyes shifted to the center of the purple jade platform. It was a battle arena that occupied an area of 1,000 zhang. There was no one there. Only Ning Fan and Revered Bai were waiting for them. Ning Fan, what are your chances of winning? If you aren't willing to fight, I can ask my father for your hand in marriage. Lan Mei bit her lips. These words were very unpleasant to those proud men. She was afraid that Ning Fan would blame her after hearing it, but she was also worried that Ning Fan would be bullied by Revered Bai. There's no need to worry too much. I will definitely win this battle. His gaze focused and an icy light flashed. He was exceptionally eye-catching in the crowd, as he appeared in the center of the battle arena, on the purple jade platform. Immediately, the entire battle arena was filled with people. Ning Fan has appeared. Next, we just need to wait for Revered Bai to arrive, and the battle will begin. This is a peak harmonious spirit cultivation base. When I saw him during the last test in Demon Sinister Forest, he was only a late harmonious spirit, half a year. This kid has actually broken through a small realm. Not only that, compared to the last time we met, this kid's magical force is obviously condensed and vigorous. He must have cultivated his cultivation method to an extremely high realm. This kid has undergone an extraordinary transformation in half a year. But unfortunately, his opponent is Revered Bai. AI, it's good that it's not enough. Young man, failure and failure is always a good thing. The words of the crowd were either surprised, doubtful, praising or belittling, falling into Ning Fan's ears. However, these comments couldn't shake Ning Fan's state of mind. Wearing down my spirit. If my spirit is worn down, how am I going to stab Moksha Emperor's finger 100 years later? Perhaps it's better to hide my blade. But if I can't even defeat by fating, I won't be able to do anything 100 years later. He closed his eyes and placed his hands behind his back, feeling the different emotions in the eyes of countless experts. All kinds of situations in the world were playing out on this small purple jade platform. For 3 days, the sun rose and the moon set, but Ning Fan didn't move at all. He stood at the center of the jade platform, silently recalling the 4 words death to the monarch. His chi gradually became lower and lower, but it was getting more and more soul-stirring. He was as steady as a mountain, as deep as the water, as deep as a thread, as sharp as a sword, and as breathtaking as a rainbow. By fating still hadn't arrived after 3 days, but many of the younger generation had issued a challenge to Ning Fan. Hong Qian, who was ranked 7th in the Green Devil ranking. Wuxia, who was ranked 15th in the Green Devil ranking. Bai Bai, who was ranked 47th in the Green Devil ranking. Moreover, there was also a peak harmonious spirit expert, Zhong Mia, who was ranked 2nd in the Green Devil ranking. The Green Devil ranking was a list of outstanding youths among the devil cultivators in Yu country. These youths were young and full of vigor. Under the instigation of Bai Bai, they came to challenge Ning Fan. Bai Bai inherited revered Bai's breadth of mind. He couldn't bear to see Ning Fan being in the limelight. Under his instigation, a few outstanding youths issued a challenge to Ning Fan at the same time. Ning Fan, do you dare to fight me? You claim to be the #1 cultivator below the Gold Core realm in Yu country. I don't believe it. Under Bai Bai's instigation, Zhong Mia revealed a devilish smile and took out his magical treasure, ready to attack at any time. Get lost. Facing Bai Bai and the others, Ning Fan didn't even open his eyes. He just stomped his feet on the ground. Immediately, countless white bone sword shadows shot out from the ground. There was a streak of blood-red sword light that danced in the shadows. The sword chi contained all the young experts including Zhong Mia. Ning Fan slashed out of the arena. As for Bai Bai, he was in an even worse state. His robe had been sliced clean by Ning Fan. The white bone mountain sword chi. Ning Fan could activate this sword with a point and a stomp. This sword chi wasn't something that anyone below the Gold Core realm could withstand. Ning Fan had already shown them mercy. Otherwise, they would have died under his sword. A single sword strike had defeated all the youths of Yu country. The so-called Green Devil ranking couldn't measure Ning Fan's strength at all. He didn't show a trace of pride when he defeated Azure Devil. He only felt that it was a matter of course. He still hadn't opened his eyes, but the trace of killing intent was enough to shake the hearts of the experts on the scene. The only ones who could make Ning Fan unleash his true strength were the old monsters. By fating, how long are you going to hide? Hide. This old man needs to hide. A ray of icy light descended from the sky. It was revered Bai. He glared at Bai Bai, who had lost all his face. This Bai Bai could be said to have completely lost his face. If it wasn't for Bai Bai's humiliation, Bai Fating would have waited for a few more days to grind down Ning Fan's spirit before going on stage. He firmly believed that he wouldn't lose to Han Yuanji's disciple. However, it would be better if he could win easily. Facing Ning Fan, who had his eyes closed, he slowly stopped and said coldly from 100 steps away, "Elder Ning, if you admit defeat now and hand over your supreme-grade magical treasure, you can avoid making a fool of yourself here." Bai Fating's tone was as if he had already defeated Ning Fan. As he spoke, purple chi flashed in his eyes. Those old monsters who met Bai Fating's gaze felt a chill down their spine. Such a cold gaze. Was this the power of the 4th-grade cold chi? Only nascent soul old monsters were qualified to devour the 4th-grade cold chi. Bai Fating was able to devour the 4th-grade cold chi when he was only an intermediate gold core expert, which meant that he could even fight a late gold core expert. Humph, this old Bai is still so meddlesome. He actually dared to fight a junior. On the seats of Great Void Sect, a late gold core elder, Elder Song Feng, looked at Bai Fating with deep fear. He had once fought Bai Fating to a draw. But now, he was afraid that Bai Fading could win him by relying on the fourth-grade cold qi. As for those who knew revered Bai's name, they were looking forward to witnessing revered Bai's means. "Old Bai, have mercy," revered Black Yen Bai, the master of Yin Jueyin, a black-robed old swordsman said in a clear voice. As a late Gold Core elder of Sinister Sparrow sect, Yin Jueyin didn't want to see Ning Fan and Bai Fading fight to the death, although he didn't have a good impression of Ning Fan's old master. "Don't worry, he won't die. This old man will let him have 3 moves first." Bai Fading's tone was extremely arrogant. With his current strength, he could even fight a late Gold Core old monster. If he was still afraid of a harmonious spirit expert like Ning Fan, then he would have lived his life like a dog. But as soon as his arrogant words fell, Ning Fan, who had been closed for 3 days, opened his eyes for the first time. A sharp and threatening killing intent flashed across his eyes. The tyrannical killing intent made all the old monsters on the scene suck in a cold breath and lose control of their minds. Bai Fading, who was the closest to Ning Fan, was forced to take a dozen steps back by Ning Fan's gaze. Bai Fading was surprised to find that after waiting for 3 days, not only did Ning Fan's spirit not decrease, it had reached its peak. Ning Fan's right palm suddenly waved. A huge white bone sword that was 7 feet long and 1 foot wide appeared in his palm. With a loud bang, the ground of the amethyst sky platform, that was as hard as iron, was smashed by Ning Fan's sword, leaving half a foot of cracks on the ground. "I have been waiting for you for 3 days. Today you will lose." His qi had reached its peak. This qi even made the illusory clouds in the sky show fear. At this moment, not only Bai Fading was shocked, even the beggar stood up and slapped his thigh. "This is the might of an immortal emperor." "No, it's not, my senses are wrong." The beggar revealed a regretful expression. It was even more regretful than when he found out that Ning Fan wasn't the person he was looking for. A deep sigh could be heard. A battle between a harmonious spirit expert and a Gold Core expert shouldn't have surprised him. But at this moment, he was shocked by Ning Fan several times. Each of Ning Fan's means seemed to have an extraordinary background. If I knew this earlier, I would have bet on how many moves Ning Fan would use to win. "I bet 3 moves. The beggar's eyes sparkled. This was the first time he became serious. But this was the first time in his life that the beggar was surprised because Ning Fan didn't use any magical technique. What he used was a body refining technique. Chapter 107. Ning Fan's body, which was 6 meters tall, and equipped with a 7 meters gigantic sword, shone with a silvery light. Countless old monsters sucked in a breath of cold air when they sensed the heavy and murderous qi around him. In the Yu Kingdom, the 6-meter-tall body was considered an extremely ordinary body refining technique. However, when Ning Fan's body shone brightly with silver light, his ordinary 6-zhang-tall body gave countless old monsters a sense of threat. This is the Silverbone realm." Some of the old eccentrics almost immediately cried out. They couldn't help but be shocked. If Ning Fan was really at the Silverbone realm, he would be able to fight against a nascent soul cultivator with just his physique. He would be the strongest in Yu country. However, some meticulous old monsters immediately discovered that even though the silver light around Ning Fan's body was strong, it was still far from what the rumors had described. The silver light that shrouded Ning Fan's body seemed to be converged into his bones. So it isn't the true Silverbone realm. That scared the hell out of me. The patriarch of the giant demon sect, Zhu Qing, was a late-stage golden core body tempering cultivator from Wu country. He wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He was passing by the country of Yu and heard of this event, so he came to take a look. He didn't expect to see such a shocking scene. After all, the members of the Great Devil sect cultivated the ancient body refinement technique, the Great Devil Technique. It was a devil technique that originated from the endless sea of the Rain world. Even with his 500 years of bitter cultivation, he had only reached the stage where his body shone with silver light, which was enough to kill a golden core cultivator. Even so, it seemed to be slightly weaker than Ning Fan's silver light. Knowing that Ning Fan wasn't the real Silverbone, the magnate heaved a sigh of relief, but his eyes showed a trace of admiration for Ning Fan for the first time. If one was not a body refinement cultivator, even if they knew that Ning Fan's silver light was extraordinary, they would not be able to estimate the true combat power of his physical body. It could be said that only the magnates knew that Ning Fan had the strength to destroy a gold core expert with a single punch. The strongest person below the gold core realm. Cough cough cough. The people of Yu country have underestimated this kid. In my opinion, this kid is invincible below the gold core realm. Even among the early gold core realm, there are only a few who can defeat him. The giant's evaluation was only based on the body refinement technique. If the magnates knew that Ning Fan still had many trump cards, they certainly would not come to a conclusion so easily. As for by fading, he obviously didn't know how powerful Ning Fan was. He could see through the cultivation technique of Ning Fan's 6 meters tall body and the extraordinary silver light, but he knew that he was strong enough to withstand Ning Fan's attack. Even if he couldn't block it, his speed would certainly be faster than Ning Fan's. Body refining technique required the assistance of escaping technique. Otherwise, no matter how strong his strength was, he wouldn't be able to hit his opponent. No matter how strong Ning Fan's physical body was, just the fact that he could not catch up to him had already determined his defeat. This kid is still too immature after all. By fading sneered. In front of him, Ning Fan's avatar wielded a giant sword and dashed forward like a mad devil. His speed was fast enough to catch up to an early gold core realm cultivator, but it was not enough to deal with by fading. Moreover, to be safe, by fading still had a backup plan. He stomped on the ground, and the icy light on the ground stretched for 100 meters, condensing into an icy immortal cloud. The celestial cloud returned to his body, and with a stomp, it turned into an icy light. There were a total of 4 cloud tattoos inscribed on the celestial cloud. Hiss, 4-lined immortal cloud. This by fading actually has such an escape technique. Doesn't that mean that if an early nascent soul realm old monster doesn't use the teleportation technique, they won't be able to catch up to him? Not only that, this celestial cloud is the natal celestial cloud. Elder Song Feng of Great Void Sect said solemnly, natal celestial cloud. As soon as these words were spoken, it instantly caused an uproar among countless cultivators. Rumor has it that only the celestial cloud of extremely high quality could be refined into a natal celestial cloud, which could be kept in one's body and be used to augment one's spirit. If there was a chance to upgrade the cloud tattoos, it could even upgrade the grade of the natal celestial cloud. This was an immortal cloud that could upgrade the grade of the natal celestial cloud. Elder Song Feng stared at by fading with fear in his eyes. Dozens of years ago, he had a battle with by fading that lasted for several days and nights without a clear winner. However, by fading didn't use this natal celestial cloud until the end of the battle. It seemed like even Song Feng, an old rival of by fading, had underestimated this person. As soon as the natal celestial cloud was summoned, by fading's speed was as fast as lightning. Almost immediately, he retreated 100 meters away from Ning Fan, not giving Ning Fan a chance to get close to him. At the same time, he patted his storage pouch and took out a flying sword that emitted an icy light. When the cultivators who knew the name of this sword saw it, all of them sat upright and still, their eyes filled with passion. This sword was extraordinary. His body was like an icy rainbow, as sharp as lightning. While he was flying, faint dragon roars could be heard. Hornless Ice Sword. This is one of revered Bai's trump cards. I can't believe he used it in the first exchange. TSK TSK TSK. Look at revered Bai's flying sword technique. This is the Wind Sword Pavilion of Chu, a mid-ranked cultivation country. It's called the Seven Sword Art. Rumor has it that only a few people in the Wind Sword Pavilion have learned this sword technique. Revered Bai is indeed worthy to be able to learn such a difficult sword technique. The sound of the crowd clicking their tongues could be heard, and by fading enjoyed the compliments from the crowd. The reason why he used the natal celestial cloud and the hornless ice sword in the first exchange was that Ning Fan's aura was too overwhelming and the silver light was too strange. Although by fading was arrogant, he was still cautious. However, when he saw that Ning Fan's speed couldn't catch up to him, he gradually revealed a trace of arrogance, and the fear in his heart turned into a sneer of ridicule. A dignified cultivator actually learned from a boorish man, brandishing a sword and boasting about your strength. Plus, that frighteningly huge sword of yours looks really clumsy and funny. How can it hit a cultivator who is as light as a swallow? Fine, this old man will teach you what a sword is, and what a flying sword is. Quick. This time, by fading no longer retreated. He kept the immortal cloud and his eyes were cold. Suddenly, he changed his incantation gesture. The hornless ice sword immediately let out a clear cry, and a cold chi rolled towards Ningfan. Being covered by the cold chi, Ningfan could vaguely feel that his magical power had stagnated. His magical power had been suppressed by 70%. This is the spirit augmentation divine ability, Ice Lock. Ningfan's eyes moved. He immediately saw through the technique of Ice Lock. Hornless Ice Sword. It was a high-grade early-rank magical treasure, one of revered Bai's ultimate magical treasures. It came with the Ice Lock divine ability, which could suppress the magical power of the enemy. At least 30% of a harmonious spirit cultivator's magical power would be frozen. This spirit augmentation divine ability seemed to be a nascent realm spirit augmentation divine ability. Ningfan didn't expect that by fading would have the chance to obtain it. This divine ability had locked Ningfan's magical power. Immediately, the hornless ice sword flashed and pierced towards Ningfan's heart. By fading's imperial sword technique was indeed unique, locking the enemy's cultivation base and delivering a killing blow. It was as if he was afraid of killing Ningfan on the spot. However, if the flying sword pierced through his chest, he would be severely injured even if his vital points were avoided. Ningfan's eyes flickered with a cold light. Although the cold chi of this ice lock was extraordinary, he had nothing to fear. A trace of black fire flashed in Ningfan's eyes. Immediately, the ice chi that had frozen his magical power was burned into nothingness. Ningfan, who had recovered his magical power, looked at the oncoming hornless ice sword. His eyes lit up. He waved his giant sword, stirring up a gust of wind, and slashed at the tip of the hornless ice sword. Ningfan's action immediately earned a sneer from revered Bai, who was controlling the flying sword from afar. Ignorant. Your sword doesn't have any power, and its grade is obviously lower than my flying sword. Your sword will definitely break if you clash with it recklessly. He sneered, but in the next moment his eyes were filled with shock. It broke. It really broke, but it wasn't Ningfan's giant sword that broke, but his high-grade hornless ice sword. When Ningfan's giant sword released its full power, Bai Fading discovered that the seemingly clumsy and ridiculous giant sword was actually a peak mid-grade magical treasure. When the giant sword collided with the hornless ice sword, a faint sound of thunder could be heard. It wasn't the giant sword itself that broke the hornless ice sword, but the lightning intent in the sword. It wasn't the spirit augmentation divine ability. What was this lightning? This is the heavenly tribulation lightning line of the lightning water. Although it's very faint, it can't be wrong. This brat is really lucky to be able to forge a divine weapon with this lightning water. The beggar's eyes flickered as he stared at Ningfan without blinking. A sword with the force of 10,000 jin. The giant sword clashed with the hornless ice sword, producing a thunderous sound. Cracks immediately appeared on the hornless ice sword. Its light dimmed and rolled backwards. Bai Fading revealed a painful expression as he held the hornless ice sword. The sword was severely damaged, and it would be difficult to repair it. Ningfan, this old man has already shown mercy to you. Why did you destroy my magical treasure? Revered Bai shouted angrily. Mercy? Injuring me seriously is showing mercy? Fine. Today, I won't kill you, but I will injure you seriously. Show mercy. The power of spirit sense flashed in Ningfan's eyes. At the next moment, he disappeared without a trace. Not to mention Bai Fading, even the peak gold core experts on the scene, including Sinister Sparrow, felt a chill in their hearts. No one could detect where Ningfan was hiding and where he attacked from. What level of invisibility technique is this? Bai Fading's face turned ugly. Since he couldn't detect Ningfan's attack route, he couldn't rely on the immortal cloud to escape to the right direction and widen the distance between them. While he was hesitating, Ning Fan's figure suddenly appeared behind him. In an instant, Bai Feiting's hair stood on end. He turned around and retreated with the immortal cloud. You can't escape. Ning Fan's eyes narrowed. The giant sword slammed down fiercely. Lightning flashed and locked onto Bai Feiting, freezing his retreating immortal cloud. It wasn't freezing, but the heavenly tribulation. This is impossible. After a cultivator broke through to the gold core realm, he would have to face the heavenly tribulation. The power of the heavenly tribulation varied from lightning to fire to wind, from small to big. But there was one thing in common. There was no way to avoid the heavenly tribulation. Because the heavenly tribulation was the heaven's might, it had the effect of locking on to the heaven's secret. No matter how smart a person was, could he hide from the heaven? There was no way to escape. Whether it was the immortal cloud flying escape, nascent soul instantaneous movement, or even the spirit severing great teleportation technique, none of them could escape from the heaven's fate. Once the heavenly tribulation had locked on to the heavenly tribulation, one's body would be immobilized, and one could only walk with one's physical body. What shocked Bai Feiting wasn't only the heavenly tribulation, but also the heavenly might that Ning Fan's sword carried. Bai Feiting wasn't the only one who was bewildered. Most of the old monsters were interested in Ning Fan's sword. However, Bai Feiting didn't have the time to be surprised because Ning Fan's sword had already slashed down on his head. He didn't cultivate any body refining technique, so he couldn't escape from Ning Fan's sword light with his physical body. As such, he could only face it head-on. The distance was too close, so close that he couldn't use his flying sword to hurt the enemy. However, revered Bai was a famous figure for many years. Since he had no way to escape, he could only fight to the death. He was able to live until today because of his ruthlessness. With a ruthless look in his eyes, Bai Feiting raised his hornless ice sword horizontally to meet Ning Fan's giant sword. In his point of view, no matter how strong Ning Fan's physical strength was, Ning Fan's magical power was still a few realms lower than his. It wouldn't be difficult for him to overcome Ning Fan's physical strength by suppressing his magical power. However, he had underestimated Ning Fan's physical strength. In this slash, the ancient beast wrist guard on Ning Fan's right wrist emitted a faint light. An ancient demonic chi emerged in Ning Fan's body, causing his physical strength to increase by 30%. It increased by 30%. One slash had the strength of 13,000 jin. As soon as the two swords collided, Bai Feiting immediately felt the web between his thumb and forefinger tremble. The huge force passed through the sword to his arm and chest, causing his blood and chi to boil. Immediately, he spurted out a mouthful of blood. The hornless ice sword almost fell out of his hand, but in the end, he managed to block Ning Fan's sword. However, Ning Fan's attack was far from stopping. The second slash was followed by another slash. The second slash drew the power of lightning, and the momentum of the sword was even stronger. Bai Feiting was faintly afraid of this giant sword, but he had no choice but to face the second slash head-on. For this slash, Bai Feiting used the gold core sword chi, the heavenly devil sword, which he was not familiar with. He ignited his blood essence, and barely managed to block the second slash. Even so, under the impact of the huge force, Bai Feiting's blood and chi churned. He coughed out another mouthful of blood, and his face began to turn pale. Apparently, his internal organs were severely injured. Fear rose in his heart. He bit the tip of his tongue, and was ready to cast the blood escape art to break free from the lock of the heavenly tribulation. However, Ning Fan's sword was faster. It was obviously heavy and bulky, but in Ning Fan's hand, it was as light as a feather, as if it was his arm. For the third slash, Ning Fan also activated the sword intent, White Bone Mountain. Within 100 jong radius, countless white bone sword shadows appeared. On the sword light of the giant sword, all the murderous intent converged into a blood-red line. The line was extremely illusory, but in Bai Feiting's eyes, it was as if he had seen a ghost. Line of law. What kind of sword chi is this? The third slash, the hornless ice sword shattered. Bai Feiting was swept away by the sword chi, spurting out blood. If it wasn't for the fact that he had cast the blood escape art, this slash would have seriously injured him. Even if he managed to retreat in time, the injury he suffered was definitely not light. His heart was filled with horror. He distanced himself from Ning Fan and immediately took out a purplish-red bead and crushed it. Immediately, his left eye turned purple and his right eye turned red. Both of his eyes emitted a power that could see through invisibility, causing Ning Fan's expression to change slightly. Breaking illusion bead. It can see through the invisibility of nascent soul cultivators and break all illusions of nascent realm formations. It's priceless. I never thought that you would use this item in a mere gamble. Ning Fan had yet to display his most powerful trump card, but by fading seemed to have been forced into a dead end. He had indeed become stronger. However, it seemed like it wouldn't be easy to win with just his physical strength. By fading couldn't be underestimated. This man had a lot of experience in killing. Although he was defeated by Ning Fan several times, he still managed to escape using various means. However, no matter how hard he struggled, he would still win. Ning Fan had the confidence and strength to do so. On the Purple Jade Sky platform, all the cultivators were shocked when they saw by fading being forced to use the breaking illusion bead. Initially, everyone thought that Revered Bai could defeat Ning Fan with ease. But the fact was that Ning Fan was able to suppress Revered Bai with his tyrannical strength. Ning Fan's face wasn't red, and he wasn't out of breath, but Revered Bai was already heavily injured. This is impossible. Bai couldn't believe it. He could explain his defeat to Ning Fan, because his realm was lower than Ning Fan's. But how could his father, a famous figure with a cultivation base far surpassing Ning Fan, lose to a junior like Ning Fan? The pride in his heart was shattered for the first time, turning into a painful expression. Impossible. Bai clenched his teeth and persisted. But the truth couldn't be refuted. Outside the platform, Jihe's mouth was slightly agape. She had never thought that her brother Fan would be this powerful. Although her brother Fan had always been omnipotent in her heart, this was her first time witnessing Ning Fan's ruthlessness. Lan Mei, on the other hand, revealed a proud expression, as if she wanted to proclaim to the others that the valiant man on the platform was her husband. Only see Wuxia's eyes darkened from time to time, as if she had thought of something, but it wasn't. She shook her head in annoyance, suppressing all the thoughts in her mind. Surprisingly, she didn't follow Jihe's lead like usual. The beggar, on the other hand, looked at Ning Fan's heroic spirit that could conquer the world with a solemn expression. Giant sword. Ancient fiend god. Is this kid thinking of dual cultivation? This kid has the immemorial devil vein. I wonder which one is better between him and my Rain Emperor divine vein. Forget it, he's still a junior after all. If I argue with him, I'll be at a disadvantage. Compared to Bai fading, the beggar was obviously more heroic and unrestrained. But when he thought that Ning Fan's family was about to win all the immortal jades that he had earned, he felt a heartache. His treasure bowl was fake. He came here to cheat the immortal jades. It wasn't easy for him to set up this bet. Could it be that all of it was going to benefit Ning Fan's family? As for the beggar, he couldn't help but cheer for Ning Fan in his heart, hoping that Ning Fan would win. If Ning Fan won, his capital and profit would offset each other. If Ning Fan lost, or drew, he would have to face 100 or even 1,000 times compensation. That wouldn't be a loss, but a complete loss. Chapter 108. Ning Fan's eyes flashed with fire. Within ancient chaos's memories, fiend gods that transformed into 30 kilometers tall and annihilated an abode star with a single punch could be found everywhere. After withdrawing his avatar, Ning Fan exhaled lightly and kept the giant sword. Then, he opened his mouth and spat out the Separation Slayer flying sword in the form of starlight. He looked at Revered Bai indifferently. Revered Bai's face turned gloomy. He instinctively felt fear and took half a step back. He was afraid. The clash of swords and the battle of breaking the technique with brute force had terrified Bai fading. He recited the incantation to sweep away the fear in his heart and restored his usual cold and arrogant expression. I still have the Myriad Soul Banner and the purple Loathe Ice Frost. I have already used the breaking illusion bead. He can no longer use his body refining technique to get close to me. I will not lose. Revered Bai's face reappeared with pride and confidence. Although it was much weaker than before, this was the first time Ning Fan paid more attention to Revered Bai. Regardless of his cultivation base, Revered Bai was an old monster who had lived for hundreds of years. His state of mind was extremely calm. As for Ning Fan, the only thing he couldn't compare to Bai Fading was his state of mind. Heart Devil. Ning Fan had yet to eliminate his Heart Devil and form his gold core. His state of mind was still lacking compared to Revered Bai. However, fighting wasn't about one's weakness, but one's strength. He had to use his strongest technique to fight for a result. Mortals were ignorant. They learned poetry, book, etiquette, and book of changes. As a result, they could only master a few of them and use them in the future. Gradually, Ning Fan's state of mind improved a little. His worries about his strength had been swept away. I can kill my enemies. That means I'm strong. Even if my state of mind, cultivation technique, and age aren't as good as him. The harmonious spirit cultivators didn't understand the change in Ning Fan's vision and the improvement of his state of mind. However, the gold core cultivators knew that it was the sign of a breakthrough in his state of mind. This kid actually broke through his state of mind during a fight. His aptitude could be said to be monstrous. Only Bai Fading's eyelids twitched, as if he had regained his previous arrogance. He couldn't bear to see Ning Fan stealing the limelight. Deliberately mystifying. This time, I won't give you the chance to display your body refining technique. I'll let you know the terror of the myriad soul banner. His face sank. He slapped his storage pouch and took out a blood-red soul banner. It flickered with light and surged with killing intent. Ghostly cries came from it. It was unknown how many people Revered White had killed in his life and absorbed them into the soul banner. As soon as the soul streamer appeared, countless old monsters' eyes turned cold. Revered Bai had actually used his strongest magical treasure, the myriad soul streamer. Facing a harmonious spirit junior, he actually used all of his means. After a slight hesitation, Bai Fading took out a black heavy armor and put it on. This is a gold mystic peak grade spirit equipment, the profound heavy armor. Its effect is to defend against the full attack of an intermediate gold core cultivator. The pupils of all the old monsters shrank, especially venerable White's old enemy, Elder Song Feng, who clenched his fists and had a deep look in his eyes. Old Bai, I didn't expect you to have this spiritual equipment. If you had this during the battle that year, I would have been defeated by you. You really have hidden your strength well. After taking out the myriad soul streamer and the profound heavy armor, Bai Fading's heart finally calmed down. These were his trump cards. If he still couldn't defeat Ning Fan, he might as well find a piece of tofu and kill himself. He sneered at Ning Fan, but he didn't see any fear in Ning Fan's eyes as he expected. Ning Fan's eyes glanced at the two magical treasures of Revered Bai and revealed a disdainful look. The myriad soul streamer. This streamer is made from the blood sacrifice of 10,000 souls. Once the 10,000 souls are unleashed, even a late gold core cultivator wouldn't be able to resist it. But it's easy to break it. The profound heavy armor, what a good tortoise shell. A peak gold mystic spirit equipment, only a step away from Jade Mystic. Unfortunately, it's not difficult to break it. In Ning Fan's eyes, there wasn't any feeling of blood boiling or nervousness, only calmness. Wang Yao could give him a sense of crisis and nervousness, but Revered Bai wasn't enough. It's still not too late for you to step down now. Ning Fan's tone was indifferent, but it was undoubtedly a huge joke to Revered Bai. Step down? This old man has already used my trump card. And you still want to step down? Ridiculous. Without the body refining technique, you are nothing. Bai Fading shook the myriad soul streamer. Innumerable souls with hollow eye sockets and bloody mouths floated towards Ning Fan like dark clouds, wailing eerily. Each of these souls only had the strength of 7th level vein opening. It was easy for harmonious spirit and gold core cultivators to kill a single one of them. But the unique feature of this soul streamer was that it was inexhaustible. 10,000 ants could bite an elephant to death. 10,000 ghosts could devour immortals and Buddhas. If Ning Fan didn't break the main soul, he would be in danger. The refinement of a soul streamer required a main soul to control all the soul fragments. Only then would it become a high-grade soul streamer. Although Lu Ziqiao's soul refining streamer had many souls, it lacked a strong main soul. Therefore, its actual power was far inferior to Bai Fading's streamer. As long as the main soul didn't die, the soul fragments wouldn't die. This was the real troublesome part of the soul streamer. When 10,000 souls appeared at the same time, you wouldn't be able to find out which soul was the hidden main soul in a short period of time. There was even a possibility that the main soul was hiding inside the streamer. Each of the old monsters outside the battlefield felt their scalp tingling when they saw the wailing of 10,000 souls. Soul refinement cultivators were the hardest to deal with. Body-seizing cultivators were the hardest to kill. And the longer the soul refinement cultivators lived, the more powerful they would become. 100,000 soul streamers, 1 million soul streamers, 10 million soul streamers, and 1 billion soul streamers. The more souls there were, the more changes the streamer would have, and the more powerful it would be. However, the number of slaughter streamers would be too many. There's no need to watch this kid anymore. Elder Song Feng closed his eyes and frowned. He had suffered a great loss under revered Bai's soul streamer. Naturally, he didn't think highly of Ning Fan. As expected of revered Bai, this soul streamer is invincible among intermediate gold core experts. Lu Ziqiao, who was already a deacon disciple, had a fiery look on his face. Although he was proud and arrogant, he still admired revered Bai very much. But immediately, wails of ghosts were heard, causing Song Feng to open his eyes in disbelief, staring at the battlefield with his old eyes. Ning Fan didn't even try to avoid the Yin souls. He didn't even try to find the main soul. With just a flick of his finger, the separation slayer turned into endless starlight and disappeared in a flash. Immediately, the ghosts began to burn for no reason. In an instant, more than half of the 10,000 remnant souls had been burned. The ordinary Yin souls were still at a loss and instinctively felt fear. Among them, an inconspicuous red-clothed child's soul revealed a horrified look and fled towards the myriad soul streamer. This child was the main soul, because he was the only soul that still retained its spirituality. Extinguish! Ning Fan's eyes and hands were quick. With a flick of his finger, the flying sword flashed. The child was hit by the sword shadow and his soul vanished. Along with the destruction of the main soul, the myriad soul streamer in revered Bai's hand let out a sorrowful wail. Suddenly, it was filled with countless cracks. One by one, the Yin souls began to explode, turning into soul power and returning to the streamer. Similarly, the power of the myriad soul streamer was greatly damaged. No, my myriad soul streamer. Ning Fan, you've gone too far. Fall of the Ice Sun. Bai Fading kept the myriad soul streamer fiercely. His eyes glowed with purple light. Both of his hands were changing hand seals. Above the sky, cold chi condensed into 100 zhang large sun. However, this sun was formed by the ice chi, and it was purple cold chi. Fall of the Ice Sun, a mid-grade core magical technique. Isn't this the technique that old monster Yang Qing was proud of? Rumor has it that old monster Yang Qing was killed by his enemy 100 years ago, and the whereabouts of this technique was unknown. So the one who killed this monster was revered Bai. This purple chi is the 4th grade cold chi, purple loath ice frost. Facing this technique, Ning Fan felt a trace of pressure for the first time, even if it was just a trace. His eyes turned cold. He knew that he could only use the black demon flame to destroy this ice sundae. It won't be difficult to destroy this ice sun with the second revolution of the dragon vortex fire. Ning Fan's eyes moved. When he was about to cast the technique, he heard the voice of the mysterious woman who had been sleeping in the yin-yang locket in his dantian. This is purple loath ice frost. Ning Fan, take this away. It's very useful to my sister. Take it away. I have a high chance of breaking this ice frost, but take it away. Do you really think that I am a nascent soul expert? Do you really think that I can take something away from Bai Fading? Ning Fan smiled bitterly in his heart. I beg you, this item is very important to my sister. This was the first time that the mysterious woman pleaded with Ning Fan. Forget it. I will help you. But how do I take it away? Ning Fan's heart softened. This woman had saved him several times when he was in danger. Since she was begging him, How could he refuse? If the mysterious woman didn't have a way, then he would have to rely on himself to snatch it away. It wouldn't matter even if he had to expose his trump card. Once he used his trump card, it would be a piece of cake for him to snatch away the ice frost. There's no need to go through so much trouble. My sister has a way to absorb this ice frost and break this magical technique. You only need to rush into the ice sun. Rush into the ice sun. Ning Fan's eyelids twitched. This was a mid-grade core magical technique that was cast with the 4th grade cold chi. The 4th grade cold chi was only a step away from the heavenly frost cold chi. Should he trust this woman and risk his life? I beg you. Just this once. Ning Fan's eyes revealed a resolute look. If he rushed into the ice sun, he would cast the sense defense art if the situation turned bad. He would certainly be severely injured, but he wouldn't die. He would trust this woman this time, and help her to repay her kindness. Chapter 109. As soon as the ice sun appeared, the entire purple jade sky platform was shrouded in cold and snowflakes fell. It was extremely difficult for Revered Bai to cast this technique, but its power was spectacular. However, its power was extremely magnificent. A trace of heavenly might made everyone gasp for breath. The sun, moon, and stars were the supreme objects of the heaven and earth. Any magical technique that was related to the sun, moon, and stars would have boundless power. Although this ice sun was only a mid-core realm magical technique, it carried a trace of heaven's might of sunset. Moreover, it was cast by Revered Bai. Only a few late gold core cultivators could withstand it. If you can withstand this technique, this old man will admit defeat. But you can't. Bai Fading's eyes glinted with cold light. At this moment, there was no desire or thought in his heart. There was no victory or defeat, only calmness. But when he saw Ning Fan leaping into the ice sun, his state of mind was thrown into chaos. Not only Bai Fading, but all the experts and even the beggar didn't expect that Ning Fan would dare to resist the might of the sunset with his flesh and blood. No, impossible. This is the heaven's might technique. How could he resist the sun with his body? Bai Fading couldn't help but be shocked. After agreeing to the mysterious lady's request, Ning Fan's eyes glinted with determination. With a flash of cold light, he went into the attack of the ice sun. Just by coming into contact with the chilly sunlight, Ning Fan's body began to freeze rapidly like an ice sculpture. He didn't even have the chance to cast the sense defense art. He realized that he had underestimated the power of the ice sun. The ice sun wasn't the scariest thing, but the sun. The rising of the sun and the setting of the moon represented the heaven's might, a domain that cultivators couldn't touch. According to the ancient legends, the sun was the saint, the moon was the emperor, and the stars were the fiend gods. Even if the sense defense art couldn't defend against the ice sun, he still had one last method: to summon the sense soul incarnation and use his half-step nascent soul cultivation base to shatter the ice sun. However, before summoning the sense soul incarnation, perhaps the mysterious lady would absorb the purple loath frost and break 90% of the power of the ice sun. If you don't absorb the cold chi, then I will shatter this sun. Ning Fan said indifferently, I'll pass you an incantation. This incantation can slightly resist the true yang energy. Take this incantation as a reward for helping my sister. However, you mustn't tell anyone else about this incantation, otherwise. The mysterious woman seemed to be hesitant. I won't tell anyone about it. Ning Fan's tone was still flat, but there was a hint of urgency in it. If he drags on any longer, the magic power of the ice sun would corrode him even more. By then, even if he uses his sense soul incarnation, he might not be able to escape unscathed. Listen up. In the Northern Ocean, there is a fish called Kuan. In the Northern Ocean, there is a saint called Hun Kuan. There was a day in the Northern Sea named In Rong. There is thunder in the Northern Sea. Its name is Thunder Grief. When the woman finished reciting the incantation, she suddenly stopped. She didn't know how to do the rest. This mantra was something he had obtained by chance. After listening to this mantra, Ning Fan's expression changed, and he chanted it in his heart. There were only 4 sentences of the mantra, but as soon as he chanted it, the irresistible corrosive force of the ice sun turned into a gentle breeze. It couldn't hurt Ningfan anymore, and gradually, it was devoured by Ningfan. That trace of corrosive force was called the true yang energy. It was a taboo force that Ningfan couldn't touch with his current realm, or even the realm of a divine emperor of the rain world. A trace of it was insignificant. After Ningfan devoured it, it immediately disappeared without a trace due to Ningfan's insufficient realm. Even so, it still left a trace of mark in Ningfan's mind. He had a vague understanding of the sunset, but he couldn't see through it. What surprised Ningfan the most was that the silent Eastern Ocean bell in his storage pouch suddenly let out a clear Dao sound. The bell rang, reverberating in Ningfan's mind. Eastern Ocean, Northern Ocean. Perhaps this bell has something to do with the Northern Ocean mantra that the mysterious woman mentioned. Ningfan had a vague guess in his mind, but he knew that the connection wasn't something that a harmonious spirit like him could figure out. Although he didn't understand the abstruse of the mantra, nor the mystery of the Eastern Ocean bell, Ningfan was sure that the Eastern Ocean bell was extraordinary for the first time. He didn't know why, but he suddenly remembered the profound yin world within the yin-yang locket. There was a huge sun that was half black and half white. The power of the ice sun couldn't hurt Ningfan anymore. The woman in the yin-yang locket took the opportunity to cast a magical technique to devour the 4th grade cold chi in the ice sun, the purple loath ice frost. This technique consumed a lot of her energy, but it seemed like the purple loath ice frost was more important to her. Ningfan didn't stay idle inside the ice sun. He closed his eyes and seemed to have comprehended something. What he comprehended was his own heart's devil. What was in front of him was the heaven's might. Under the heaven's might, the heart's devil was exceptionally clear. Through his inner heart, Ningfan could vaguely see an extremely cold and gloomy corner of his heart. In that corner, there were the sufferings of his childhood, the helplessness, despair, hatred when he was imprisoned in the all-pleasure sect, and the madness that destroyed the heaven separation sect. That corner had gathered all of Ningfan's negative emotions. If they were condensed into one, it would become the heart's devil. But Ningfan knew that his heart's devil was far more than that. Compared to these negative emotions, the scariest thing was love. Gold core cultivators needed to sever their emotions. That was why many old monsters who resorted to trickery wouldn't look for a Dao companion before reaching the gold core realm. Their hearts would lack a trace of emotion. So when they severed their heart's devil, they didn't need to face the barrier of love. They only needed to sever their negative emotions. Their hearts didn't have any struggle, so severing their heart's devil wouldn't have much effect on them. Without emotion in their hearts, it would be extremely difficult for them to advance their gold core realm. If Ningfan had a choice, he would rather not get to know Ji-He and the other women before reaching the gold core realm. In this way, even if he lacked the emotion, it would still be better than severing the emotions in their hearts. Unfortunately, he had no other choice. In order to break through the gold core realm, he must sever all ties with the women in the past. Can I do it? At this moment, Ningfan suddenly opened his eyes. His hollow eyes stared at the gradually fading ice sun in front of him, struggling. If he didn't break through the gold core realm, he would certainly die when Moksha Sovereign attacked him 100 years later. Severing the heart's devil meant forgetting Ji-He and the other women. In this way, even if he claimed to love them, he would still treat them as his cauldrons in the end. Then, what was the trace of warmth that Ningfan protected when he fought against Moksha Sovereign? His heart was struggling. The more difficult the struggle, the more it showed that the heart's devil that he was about to face was incomparably powerful. As his heart struggled, a trace of boundless chi rose from his body. Tribulation clouds condensed in the sky. This was the sign of drawing the heavenly tribulation and breaking through to the gold core realm. In an instant, Ningfan's dazed expression was swept away, and he regained his clarity. He was secretly shocked that he almost initiated the heavenly tribulation to break through to the gold core realm. Not to mention the success rate. If he went into seclusion here, he would need at least 10 years of comprehension. In order to break through to the gold core realm, he originally planned to go to the Lost World Palace to cultivate. Relying on the slow flow of time, He shortened the 10 years of comprehension to a few years. His forehead was covered with cold sweat. He dispersed the comprehension of the heart's devil, and the tribulation clouds in the sky disappeared. However, Ning Fan didn't know that the scene of his heart's devil being triggered, and the heavenly tribulation, had silenced the entire place. He was still alive after rushing into the ice sun. Moreover, no one knew what method he used in the ice sun, but he wasn't hurt at all, and was about to break through to the gold core heavenly tribulation. It was a wise move for him to disperse the heavenly tribulation in time. After all, the spiritual chi on the amethyst sky platform was thin. It would be very difficult to enter seclusion here. The reason why the old monsters were shocked wasn't because Ning Fan had initiated the heavenly tribulation, but because his cultivation speed was too fast. Before he joined the sect, he was an intermediate harmonious spirit expert. After entering the demon sinister forest for a month, he had broken through to the late harmonious spirit realm. Half a year later, he was already at the peak of harmonious spirit realm. Moreover, he had completely found his heart's devil during the battle, allowing him to break through to form his core in seclusion. Fast, too fast. Yu country was going to have a gold core cultivator, who was only a few decades old. This was simply a monstrous aptitude. Those with profound cultivation base, such as Sinister Sparrow, Elder Song Feng, and the beggar youth could vaguely see the struggle in Ning Fan's heart when the heavenly tribulation was shaking. Among them, Sinister Sparrow, who had the deepest understanding of Ning Fan, let out a sigh. He understood why Ning Fan was struggling. Because this kid had too many beauties to tie him down. Would he choose to forget them? Ning Fan had struggled before. After breaking through to the gold core realm, he would certainly become a top expert. His cultivation speed would advance by leaps and bounds. But what would he choose? Would he choose to form his core? Sinister Sparrow's face revealed a trace of shame. Even he didn't have any emotional debt before he formed his core. It was only after he formed his core that he formed a relationship with Lan Mei's mother. He didn't dare to sever his emotions. Bai Feiting's face turned gloomy once more, but there was fear in it. His ice sun falling technique couldn't hurt Ning Fan at all. On the contrary, it had helped Ning Fan to completely comprehend his heart's devil. Not long after that, Bai Feiting's eyes quivered. He found that the ice sun began to turn illusory, and even shattered. This is the heaven's might. Bai Feiting took 2 steps back and stabilized his body. Once again, he struck out several magical forces into the ice sun in an attempt to stabilize it. But immediately, the corner of his eyes shrunk, revealing a horrified expression. A dot of black fire rose faintly from the ice sun, and immediately engulfed the 4 dimensions, incinerating all the icy chi. Break! The voice of a youth came out from the ice sun immediately. The huge sun that shook everyone's heart shattered with a loud bang. A youth was controlling the black dragon fire. His eyes were cold and his body was covered in ice shards. With a finger, he shattered the illusory ice sundae. It's over. The youth said indifferently. His eyes flashed with black light. With a point of his finger, the surging black fire in his hand turned into a sea of fire. Then, like a black whirlpool, it engulfed revered Bai. Black demon flame. Earth vein demonic flame. 5th grade spiritual fire. Countless old monsters rose to their feet and stared at the black flame in disbelief. According to the knowledge of many old monsters, this flame was the flame of Old Monster Han, the apothecary. With this flame, Old Monster Han could become one of the top 10 experts in Yu country, even though he was only a harmonious spirit expert. Everyone knew that Ning Fan was the disciple of the old monster, but no one knew that the old monster would pass this flame to Ning Fan. The Earth Vein Demonic Flame. Once this flame is unleashed, even the 4th grade cold chi won't be a match for it. There's no suspense in this battle. Elder Song Feng's eyes were filled with shock. He could only watch as his old opponent was about to lose to a youth. However, he didn't feel that it was unbelievable. Instead, he felt that it was a matter of course. The strength displayed by this youth was too strong. It would be ridiculous if he still couldn't defeat revered Bai. No, I won't be defeated. This old man still has the profound heavy armor. Bai Feiting's eyes were filled with madness. He gathered all of his magical force into the profound heavy armor, trying to defend against Ning Fan's black flame. The profound heavy armor let out a sizzling sound, as if it couldn't withstand the might of the black flame. Eventually, it managed to withstand the attack. But at this moment, Ning Fan changed his hand seal, and a voice was heard. Dragon Vortex Fire, First Revolution. In an instant, the flame rose to a height of 10 meters. The whirlpool suddenly rotated. The profound heavy armor let out a sizzling sound and cracks began to appear. Don't break it. Bai Fading took out a dozen Dan-grade talismans and stuck them on the profound heavy armor. Rays of light rose from the sea of fire and turned into layers of defense. In this way, the profound heavy armor was finally able to defend against the might of the First Revolution Dragon Flame. But the Second Revolution was coming. Dragon Vortex Fire, Second Revolution. After the Second Revolution, the color of the sea of fire became darker. Bai Fading's beard and hair began to burn as he was sucked into the whirlpool. The cracks on the profound heavy armor began to spread again. It wasn't far from breaking. This old man said, "Don't break it." Revered Bai seemed to have gone mad. He patted his storage pouch and took out a bottle of secret pills that could increase magical force. His meridians felt swollen and painful. His magical force rose again and fused into the profound heavy armor to strengthen its defense, resisting the second revolution of Ning Fan's Dragon Flame. The second revolution of Dragon Flame could even severely injure an early gold core cultivator. With the help of the Black Demon Flame, the power of this technique was even greater. In the arena, the coldness was swept away, and the temperature was as hot as summer. Each of the old experts was drenched in sweat as they looked at the Dragon Flame technique with a shocked expression. Most of them couldn't withstand this flame. Now that Bai Fading was severely injured, he was still able to withstand the flame, which made the situation even more complicated and confusing. The second revolution isn't enough. If this kid uses the third revolution, no, the third revolution Dragon Flame, even the overbearing old monster Han might not be able to use it. A gold core old expert who had been bullied by the old monster, the sect master of Flying Swallow Sect, Su Fei, sighed and said, it was impossible for him to use the third revolution. Su Fei's words made many old experts agree with him. Ning Fan's magical force was also consumed. If he couldn't break Revered Bai's defense, the two of them would have a draw. A draw. In this case, the winnings will be much lesser. Forget it. Fortunately, Revered Bai won't be defeated. At least the money I bet won't be in vain. The hearts of some old monsters were still thinking about that heart-stirring bet. No one expected Revered Bai to win anymore. They only hoped that Revered Bai wouldn't be defeated and end the battle in a draw. But they were destined to be disappointed, because Ning Fan changed his technique again. Dragon Vortex Fire, Third Revolution. Black Dragon, bite him. Ning Fan's eyes glinted with cold light. The whirlpool of the sea of fire expanded. In the depths of the whirlpool, the flames condensed into a huge dragon head. It wanted to bite Revered Bai's shoulder, tearing off a large piece of heavy armor along with a piece of flesh. Arg! Revered Bai let out a wail, but the pain in his shoulder aroused his ruthlessness. He took out more than 10 magical treasures, all of which were mid-grade magical treasures. Each of them was an extremely precious treasure. But at this moment, he had forgotten about winning or losing, the bet and everything else. There was only one thought in his mind: to block Ning Fan's attack and protect his reputation. Break! 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 One after another, the magical treasures were detonated by Revered Bai. The aftershock of the explosion dispersed layers of the sea of fire, creating an opening. Revered Bai covered his injured shoulder and seized the opportunity to rush out of the sea of Dragon Vortex Fire. His beard and hair were all burnt, leaving him bald and dirty. His profound heavy armor was full of cracks, making him look extremely miserable. But in the end, he managed to block Ning Fan's third revolution Dragon Fire. Finally, it's a draw in this way. I won't lose all my face. There was no longer a trace of desire to win in his heart. He realized that he was no match for Ning Fan. Ning Fan also had a clear understanding of how difficult it was to deal with Revered Bai. This was a gold core old monster that was tempered in the blood sea. He was definitely not as weak as Bing Ling and Yu Ling. In this world, there were countless old monsters like him. He must not underestimate his enemy. Ice Rain Technique. Ning Fan didn't seem to have much magical power left. He flicked his finger and casted a low-grade Ice Rain Technique. This technique was insignificant in the eyes of countless old monsters, and Revered by didn't put it in his eyes at all. He was panting heavily, looking at the icicles in the sky and sneered. It's a draw, this ice rain can't hurt me. The icicles pierced the profound heavy armor, and were easily blocked. However, the cold chi in the icicles penetrated through the profound heavy armor, and shattered into pieces without a sign. The remaining icicles pierced Revered Bai's defenseless body one after another, turning him into a bloody mess. Of course, Ning Fan avoided the vital parts. He had said that he wouldn't kill Revered Bai, he would only injure him severely. Wow, what? Revered Bai could even withstand the Third Revolution Dragon Fire. How could he be defeated by a mere ice rain technique? This. Each of the old monsters was dumbfounded. They were surprised that Ning Fan could cast two magical techniques of different attributes, with just one immortal vein. Dragon Vortex Fire. Ning Fan must have a fire vein to cast it. Although the grade of the ice rain technique was low, Ning Fan also needed an ice vein to cast it. A dual spirit cultivator. All the cultivators who guessed this looked at Ning Fan in disbelief. They also had an answer as to why Ning Fan's cultivation speed was so fast. A dual spirit cultivator, a monstrous aptitude. Revered Bai's breath was weak. He wished he could die immediately. To him, not dying and being looked down upon by everyone was worse than death. He was a man with integrity, regardless of his character. The reason why you lost is because you underestimated me. The name of Revered Bai has made you used to being superior, forgetting that there is always someone better than you out there. The cultivation world is vast. You and I aren't the strongest. Even those void fragmentation experts that are high above us are far from the strongest. After saying these words, Ning Fan's eyes lightly swept past the beggar, and then moved away as if nothing had happened, leaving no trace behind. Don't provoke me again or else. Ning Fan didn't say anything else and turned to leave. He walked to the center of the venue and swept his eyes across the guests. Under his intense gaze, even the gold core old monsters didn't dare to make a sound. This kid wasn't the strongest under the gold core realm. Even if it was above the gold core realm, there were only a few who could defeat him. From today onwards, there will be no Revered Bai in Sinister Sparrow sect. There will only be me, Revered Ning. Chapter 110. Half a month had passed, but the old experts who stayed in Sinister Sparrow sect still looked miserable, as if their fathers had died. All the immortal jades were gone. Those who bet on Ning Fan's defeat or a draw lost all their immortal jades. Like all the other old experts, the beggar couldn't feel happy. Little Ji He and Cece took away 200,000 immortal jades from the beggar. At this moment, Ji He smiled sweetly, feeling that she was too smart. She had won so much money, just by making up her mind. When Lan Mei placed the huge amount of wealth in front of Sinister Sparrow, even the scheming Sinister Sparrow couldn't help but feel his heart tremble. 100,000 immortal jades. As the master of a sect, how could he not be tempted? Bai Lu also returned to Dual Cultivation Palace with 10,000 immortal jades to distribute the rewards. As for the wife of Fire Cloud Old Ancestor, Yin Hua, she was so shocked that she couldn't close her mouth. She held the 100,000 immortal jades in her hands and didn't know what to do. She had originally followed the old ancestors, ordered to throw the 100,000 immortal jades into the water to buy Ning Fan's good impression and plant the seed for what she would ask for in the future. But from the bottom of her heart, Yin Hua was extremely reluctant to spend such a cheap amount of money. She didn't expect that this action of throwing money could be exchanged for such a huge amount of profit. Husband, your eyes are very sharp. Yin Hua praised in her heart. Immediately, a complacent voice resounded in her heart. Of course, your husband is the dignified Fire Cloud Old Ancestor. Strangely, no one knew that a trace of spirit sense of Fire Cloud Old Ancestor was hidden in Yunhua's body through some unknown means. No wonder he was at ease when his wife went out. It turned out that he was monitoring her all the time. The beggar didn't suffer any loss or profit. He came to Sinister Sparrow's sect to look for Ning Fan. But he didn't even find a hair of Ning Fan. It seemed like this trip was a waste of effort. He wasn't in a good mood. So he ignored all the old experts who came to claim a relationship with him. He couldn't wait to leave Sinister Sparrow's sect to avoid the annoyance of these bees and flies. But Ning Fan didn't appear for a long time, and didn't exchange for the 50,000 immortal jades that he was supposed to get. After the battle on the sky platform, Ning Fan had become revered Ning, and immediately went into seclusion. His state of mind was in chaos because of the Heart Devil. He had to suppress his Heart Devil again, because it wasn't the right time to form his core. The Lost World Palace. Before I find this place, I can't form my core. Otherwise, time will be wasted. If Ning Fan didn't show up, the beggar wouldn't be able to leave. He was a dignified second heavenly layer void fragmentation old monster, and the dignified son of a divine emperor. How could he take advantage of a junior with 50,000 immortal jades? Was he that short of money? Although he was a beggar, the stone chamber of the dual cultivation palace was destroyed by him when he was in seclusion the last time. This time, he was in seclusion in the stone chamber of the Dan Palace. As for his cheap disciple Xueqing, he was waiting respectfully outside the stone chamber. This scene shocked many old monsters. The arrogant Third Revolution Pill Master Xueqing actually greeted Ning Fan like a disciple. Xueqing would naturally not explain all of this to anyone. This was Ning Fan's instruction to not reveal his identity as a Fourth Revolution Pill Refinement Master. At this moment, Xueqing's eyes were burning as he stared at the stone gate. Previously, he respected Ning Fan because of his pill concoction skills. But after the battle with Revered Bai, Ning Fan's combat strength had impressed him. Although Revered Bai wasn't as strong as an old ancestor, and wasn't one of the top 10 experts in Yu Country, he was still one of the top 20 experts in Yu Country. However, an expert of this level was defeated by a young man like Ning Fan. Before the battle, no one expected Ning Fan to win. At the end of the battle, no one regretted the fact that they had placed the wrong bet. At the age of 17, Ning Fan stepped on the path of evil cultivation. At the age of 18, he had become one of the top experts in Yu Country, revered Ning of Sinister Sparrow sect. The only thing that bothered Xueqing was that Ning Fan seemed to have found too many wives for him. With a smile on his face, he looked at the anxious women outside the stone chamber. Jihe was born with a bewitching bone. Bai Lu was the #1 devil girl of Sinister Sparrow sect. Lan Mei was the young master of Sinister Sparrow sect. Cici, this woman gave Xueqing a terrifying feeling. Facing her seemed to be more dangerous than facing Sinister Sparrow. These are all wives of Master. I can't neglect them. With a smile on his face, he greeted the 4 women one by one. As for the innocent Jihe, her impression of this respectful old man immediately improved. As for Wuxia, she only nodded her head lightly as a response. Only in front of Ning Fan would she put away her coldness and turn back into an innocent girl. However, this innocence was diminishing as time went by. Lan Mei and Bai Lu were the ones who couldn't adapt to Xueqing's smile the most. Lan Mei was still fine. As the young master, Xueqing would usually smile and talk to her, but he had never been so respectful to her. Xueqing had an air of arrogance that belonged to a pill refinement grandmaster. This air of arrogance allowed him to not show his inferiority in front of experts like Sinister Sparrow. But today, Xueqing was very respectful. The way he looked at her was like a junior. This made Lan Mei slightly uncomfortable, but she could vaguely guess that the reason why Xueqing was so respectful to her was related to Ning Fan. The one who couldn't adapt to it the most was Bai Lu. In the past, as the substitute elder of Dual Cultivation Palace, Xueqing had never once looked at her when she came to Dan Palace to collect the pills required by the female disciples. In fact, Xueqing had always despised Bai Lu, but today, Xueqing was extremely respectful to Bai Lu. All of this was because he heard that Bai Lu had been subdued by Ning Fan. This is also Master's wife. I can't neglect her. Xueqing's face was full of smiles, but his heart was smiling bitterly. This expression was too difficult for a cold and arrogant person like him. However, he discovered that when he put down his pride and resumed the mentality of a junior, his stagnant cultivation base began to loosen a little. Ning Fan didn't know what was happening outside the stone chamber. After obtaining the purple loaf ice frost, the mysterious woman fell into a deep slumber again. But Ning Fan could vaguely feel that the mysterious woman was undergoing some kind of change. Whether it was good or bad, he didn't know. After suppressing the chaotic state of mind, he didn't come out of seclusion immediately. Instead, he stayed in the stone chamber to sort out the insights he gained from the battle. Breaking illusion bead. For Mark's natal immortal cloud. 4th grade cold chi. Myriad soul banner. Hornless ice sword. 7 sword art. By Fading's means weren't weak. Moreover, his rich experience in fighting also gave Ning Fan a hint of inspiration. There was a world of difference in combat strength between a cultivator, who trained in blood and fire, and a cultivator, who cultivated peacefully. After breaking through to the Gold Core realm, he must go to the Lost World Palace to borrow the power of the Lost World, to shorten the time needed to form his core. The mysterious woman did not mention the location of the Lost World Palace. However, it was currently in a deep slumber. Just like the Godly Void Pavilion, the Lost World Palace could be found all over the Rain World. Unfortunately, there was no Lost World Palace in Yu Country. The nearby Wu Country and Chu Country did not seem to have any Lost World Palace either. Even the nearest one had to cross more than a dozen cultivation countries. After arriving at Ying, he would board the Heaven Evasion boat and sail to the Boundless Sea. The Endless Sea was located in the easternmost region of the Rain Immortal World. It was a long way from the Endless Sea. Apart from cultivators, there were also foreign races. Demon race, ghost race, giant devil race. With Ning Fan's traveling speed, it would take him several years just to get to the Lost World Palace in the Endless Sea. It seemed like the losses outweighed the gains. To go or not to go, that was the question. Currently, he still had a lot of enemies in Yu Country. The 3 immortal armies had yet to form their true combat power. It was unknown whether he could protect Ning City and 7 Apricot City. Was it really a good idea for him to leave Yu Country at this time? There is an old saying in the cultivation world. Cultivating the Tao is not cultivating longevity, but to be free and unfettered. If one's heart is shackled, one will never be able to cultivate the Tao again. At this moment, Ning Fan finally experienced the troubles of having too many shackles. At the same time, he also experienced the happiness of having too many shackles. It seems like I haven't had a good time to bask in the sun for a long time. He recalled the old monster's reminder, sighed slightly and stood up. He thought of Ning Gu who was far away from home, and closed his eyes slightly. He thought of Extreme Yin Gate, Bone Sovereign, Moksha Sovereign and the scenes of slaughter. In just a year of devil cultivation, his hands had been stained with too much blood and sins. Ning Fan needed to bask in the sun. This was the method to suppress the heart devil that the old monster taught him. Exit seclusion. He gently pushed the stone door open, and saw the 4 girls and Xueqing. Their eagerness turned into a trace of determination in his eyes. I won't sever my emotions. Bai Lu frowned as soon as she saw Ning Fan. She let out a soft humph, and turned away without saying a word to Ning Fan. However, her shoulders were obviously shaking, as if she wasn't as calm as she looked. Lan Mei was a little reserved, Cece was a little happy, and Jiha clung to Ning Fan's bosom. Brother Fan, we are rich. Her first sentence wasn't about missing him for a long time, but about being rich. How heartless was this little girl. Ning Fan let go of Jiha and patted her hair. His eyes were looking outside the stone chamber. The 2 of you have been waiting for a long time. The 2 people he was referring to were Lady Yin Hua and the impatient beggar. 2 silhouettes immediately walked out from both sides of the valley. One of them walked like a lotus while the other one had an unpleasant expression. If you don't come out, I will smash your stone chamber. Here, this is the 50,000 immortal jades that you won. The beggar impatiently threw a storage pouch that contained 100,000 immortal jades to Ning Fan. I will definitely support the next time there is a bet. Ning Fan clasped his fists at the beggar. Only a fool would refuse to earn money, Don't. I don't want to see you ever again, right? Have you seen a piece of blue jade? The beggar suddenly asked mysteriously. Perhaps this was his original intention of waiting for Ning Fan. Blue jade? Ning Fan showed a strange expression. Is that so? Forget it, pretend I didn't ask. The beggar didn't say anything else. Ning Fan's expression showed that he really didn't know anything. His words were inexplicable, but there seemed to be a profound meaning behind it. Ning Fan's eyes moved. This beggar wasn't looking for jades but someone. This beggar was a void fragmentation expert of Rain Palace. Everyone in the 800 cultivation countries knew that Rain Palace was looking for someone. However, no one knew who they were looking for. The person that Rain Palace is looking for is related to the blue jade. All the signs made Ning Fan come to this conclusion, but he immediately put it aside. What does Rain Palace looking for someone have to do with me? Forget it, goodbye. The beggar showed an impatient expression. He clasped his fists at Ning Fan and left an array of light. After the beggar left, Ning Fan's eyes fell on Lady Yinhua's delicate body, revealing an inexplicable smile. Is there something that Lady Yinhua is looking for me? Oh, how did revered Ning know? Why would you look for me for no reason? Do you need a place to talk alone? Sorry for troubling revered Ning to lead the way. The conversation between Ning Fan and Yinhua seemed to have a profound meaning. Lan Mei also vaguely guessed that the reason why Yinhua looked for Ning Fan wasn't as simple as having an affair. However, Zhiho was a silly little girl. She naturally wouldn't think that much. When she saw Ning Fan flirting with another woman, she immediately stomped her feet in resentment. Silly girl, wait for me here. Ning Fan's eyes swept across the ladies and ordered Xue Qing to open a high-grade concoction room for a discussion. The concoction room was shielded by a nascent realm grand formation that could block spirit sense. It was undoubtedly the best place for a secret discussion. However, even Sinister Sparrow didn't have enough face to open a concoction room for discussion. Xue Qing wouldn't allow it. The concoction room was originally used for concoction. How could it be used for other purposes? However, Ning Fan was Xue Qing's master, a fourth revolution pill master and revered Ning. His face was more important than the sect master in Xue Qing's heart. Xue Qing didn't dare to disobey Ning Fan's order. Only Ning Fan and Yinhua were left in the high-grade concoction room. At this moment, Ning Fan kept his smile and said with an indifferent tone, Old ancestor Huiyin, what a leisurely mood to hide in Madame's body. Do you really think that I can't sense it? Hehe. You're worthy of being called Black Devil Ning. Your spirit sense is even stronger than mine. You're worthy of being a fourth revolution pill master. A fiery light burst out from Madame Yinhua's body and turned into an illusory fiery figure. This person was old ancestor Huiyin, a half-step nascent soul expert, Jingzhua. His hair was as red as a halberd, his eyes were fiery red, and he was wearing a big red robe. Even his smile was filled with heat. As soon as he saw this person and heard his words, Ning Fan's eyes shrunk and said coldly, I don't understand what you're talking about. Although he didn't say it out loud, his heart was filled with helplessness. It seemed like Black Devil Ning's identity was going to be exposed in the end. There were many people in the world who were good at divination. There were also many people who were good at it. It wasn't strange for them to find out his identity, but it was also possible that Jing Zhuo was just testing him, and Ning Fan wouldn't be stupid enough to admit it. Don't worry, little friend. This old man doesn't have any evil intentions. But there are people who want to kill you. Do you know that old devil Purple Een of Extreme Een Gate has joined hands with the experts of Heavenly Dao sect in Wu country to kill you? Ning Fan didn't say a word. He couldn't tell if old ancestor Jing Zhuo was still testing him. Hehe, little friend has such a strong vigilance. Good. This shows that little friend is someone who is planning something big. Little friend, you don't have to hide it from me. I have a friend in Wu country who received a piece of news by chance. That's how I found out your true identity. Little friend, do you know that old devil Purple Een has gone to Wu country and spent 10,000 immortal jades to find out your true identity from the divine divination old man? I swear on my heart's devil that this is absolutely true. Little friend, you don't have to pretend in front of me anymore. old ancestor Jingzhou said with a sincere expression. After listening to Jingzhuo's words, Ning Fan believed 70% of it and 30% of it. What he believed was that Jingzhou really knew his identity. What he didn't believe was the method to find out his identity. A friend told him? Ridiculous. This Jingzhou must be like old devil Purple Yin, spending a fortune to find out his identity from the divine divination old man. However, Jingzhou was obviously different from Purple Yin. After knowing Ning Fan's identity, he didn't dare to make a move against Ning Fan directly after thinking about it. After all, Fire Cloud Sect was the first sect to obtain a nascent formation pill. There was no need for him to go to war with Ning Fan. As long as he maintained the current situation, it would be easy for Fire Cloud Sect to obtain the first nascent formation pill. Jingzhou was highly likely to be the first nascent soul cultivator in Yu country, because he would be the first to obtain the nascent formation pill. But Purple Yin was different. His Extreme Yin Gate was scheduled to obtain the pill 10 years later, and there were many conflicts between Purple Yin and Ning Fan. Purple Yin couldn't wait. He only wanted to rob Ning Fan. Old ancestor Jingzhou, good plan, not bad. I am Ning Fan, and also Black Devil Ning. Are you satisfied with this? Tell me your purpose of coming here, otherwise, I might treat you as an enemy. Killing intent flashed in Ning Fan's eyes. Under the killing intent of an immortal emperor, even Jingzhou couldn't remain calm. As for his wife, Yunhua, her face turned pale. He really was Black Devil Ning. Sure enough, he had an extremely terrifying trump card. Plus, this kid was very cunning. He could tell that Ning Fan had found the divine divination old man to calculate the heavenly secret. But what Ning Fan didn't know was that Jingzhou was different from Purple Yin. The first one was about Black Devil Ning's identity. The second divination was about the probability of Jingzhou capturing Black Devil Ning by himself. And the answer that the divine divination old man gave was death. It was this second divination that completely dispelled Jingzhou's hostility towards Ning Fan. He was afraid that he was the only one in the entire Yu country who knew about Ning Fan's terror. Purple Yin had missed one divination, and this one divination had determined the destruction of Extreme Yin Gate. I'm sorry, people in the cultivation world have no choice but to do what they want. However, I'm indeed a friend of revered Ning now. I'm still waiting for revered Ning's nascent formation pill to break through to the nascent soul realm. How would I dare to become revered Ning's enemy? Jingzhou laughed dryly. Seeing the killing intent on Ning Fan's face didn't diminish, he kept his smile and said solemnly, "All right, I'll tell you my purpose of coming here. I want to form an alliance with revered Ning to destroy Extreme Yin Gate together." Alliance? Why? Ning Fan's eyes relaxed and his killing intent was slightly surprised. This arrogant old ancestor Hua Yun wanted to form an alliance with him? Why did he want to attack Extreme Yin Gate? I might have a grudge against Extreme Yin Gate, but what about him? As if he could see Ning Fan's doubt, Jingzhuo's eyes flashed with a trace of sadness and hatred. He pointed at Yunhua and said with a bitter smile, "To be honest with revered Ning, I have a grudge against Purple Yin for killing my wife. Look at Yunhua, she's a living person." I see. No wonder I felt something wrong with Lady Yunhua's qi. Ning Fan looked at Yunhua, who was standing prettily, and revealed a look of understanding. You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.